now out on the YouTubes because I am doing the thing I said I was going to do, and I'm making sure that we go out and the pings go out much, much earlier than, you know, before we start. And there we go. We're now all live and ready to rock and roll. But yes, so we're now ready to get started, as we so often do. I don't think we're going to get Alex today, either any of them, because they're meeting someone for something, face to face. So they won't be around their computers, although knowing Alex and Alex, they'll do the funny thing and drop in from wherever they are. Maybe, possibly. Depends on exactly how they're feeling at this particular moment. Well, we shall see. But for now, it's just me, myself, and I, but that's not a bad thing. Nothing wrong with me, myself, and I. Right then. I suppose we get started as we so often do. Right. Okay. Oh, I forgot the most important bit. Silly fleet. Silly fleet. I was so busy doing the prep for everything else that I completely forgot. Oh, silly fleet. Silly, silly fleet. Oh, okay, brilliant. So actually, does that work? Oh, he's not on. Oh, of course. Well, oh yeah, because he's not on. Let me just check. So do me version check. Okay. So in theory, if I now push this button, oh, that's strange. Okay, hang on, quick question. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, start server. Do I have to activate the bot? Well, the bot's supposed to be on, isn't it? Well, the bot is online, or at least it's supposed to be. Minor technical difficulties here, folks. You'll have to give me a minute. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Oh, yeah, that's fine. That's as it should be. Yeah. Ah, there we go. Just needed a quick MacGuffin. Right, okay. So for some reason now that's... Okay, I have to make sure I do that every time before I start. I'm learning something new every day with the way Ruinon set this up. Just have to remember how to do it. Okay, so I push that button. Hey! There we go. Look at that. Beautiful. 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 Just push that button and it works. Right, okay, we're going. We're off. We are quids in. So, Akazuki asks on, is there a drawing of the North and South Carolina helicopter carrier conversions? If you mean official drawings, I'm not sure. If you mean drawings by talented people on the internet, I bet you if you typed in North and South Carolina helicopter carrier conversions and then appended that with Tulsi, I bet you that man has drawn something or a rendition of what he thinks they might look like. I don't think there's anything that man hasn't attempted to draw. Okay, so let's see. Next question. Anything? Nothing. Ah, no one's asked any questions on YouTube yet. Good afternoon, Steve Clark. No one's asked any questions yet on YouTube. Shame. Shame. So my favorite... So just to answer Timu's question quickly. My favorite way to this is his Patreon question. My favorite way to relax is to sit in a pub with my friends with a drink, just talking the night away. I don't get to do it that often because, well, I don't really have that much money right now, and that seems a very convenient time to slide in and just remind everybody that, yes, Fleet does have a Ko-fi page and the Patreon, so any support people can give to either of those pages be massively appreciated. Help me get through all the I tried to post the wrong link there. Oh, never mind. Oh no, I didn't. Hey. But yeah, so any help people can give, even just a little bit, will be massively helpful. Even if it's just like a few euros or like a few quid on Ko-fi. Just anything to help me get through. Because things are getting really tight now, and I want to keep doing this for you, all of you. Any more questions? I'm looking, and I'm... So there was Akazuki's, but there's no more besides that. Anybody at all? Anybody at all can ask a question. Anybody. Anybody, place your bets. All takers. Crikey, lads, you're really making this start a little bit slow, aren't you? I did set out the ping, didn't I? I'm fairly certain I did. Let's have a look. You need to ping your bot instructions to YouTube chat. Suppose so. That. Need that. Yep, brilliant, fantastic. Well, I'm just doing that. I mean, Steve, I will do that when I think we don't. Right, let me just see if I can remember the actual instructions here. Ah, Google is not working with me today. I didn't mean to enter either of those. Good lord. Stop. I don't want to undo the message. I want you to go away. No, go away. I know that it's been pinned. Just bugger off. I want to pin another one. Good lord. Honestly. Honestly. Good god. Right, so you're going to let me pin that without telling me that it's pinned for like 25 seconds. So those pins should be fine. Should be fine, I think. Yeah, both. Oh, I can only have... Oh, all right. Okay, fine. Fine. Okay, I'll have to do this the old-fashioned way then. Make another message. This is really finicky. This is really, really finicky. Like, really, really finicky. And the problem with writing these in is it's going to be taken as a question, which it isn't.
Hello? Yes, yes.
Hello.
Lee, you started early.
No, I didn't.
You started at 5:30.
No, the start time is anywhere after 5. And I did announce this on multiple things that I was starting at 5.
Where did you...
It went out on Twitter, on Blue Sky, on Patreon, on Ko-fi. It went out everywhere.
Wow, where did you put it?
Do you not follow
So
me?
you didn't put it on your... No, I don't use any of those because that are brain rot. Like, if I wanted to reason to...
Well, why?
Besides...
I would have thought you would at least been a free member on Patreon, so you can keep track of, when posts come out and what's going on.
No, because my Patreon's got a private info on. So I don't let anyone else see it.
You could make a throwaway
and you can
account.
backtrace it. No, you can't. You got to authenticate it.
Ko-fi then?
Same difference. Can't figure out how to get Ko-fi to work. So
right, okay. Then we'll pin that. Right, okay.
Also, pin your bot instructions.
Yes, I know. I've seen. I've just literally done it. Right, okay. So we'll do one each. So, why is? Okay, no. Okay. There we go. So, okay, so we've done that one.
I'm just checking.
There we go.
You didn't start after 5.
Well, yeah, but I got in 2 minutes early, just so I could get a chance to sort everything out, which I did need. 1961 asks, why are the Imperial Japanese just escort destroyers and escort ships overlooked? Partially because they were overlooked.
Shouldn't you be doing a Patreon question first?
Done it. I've done it. It was a nice and simple one.
Because Timo's just said, can we have Fido's take on my Patreon question? Who's Fido?
Who? What? What? Who's Fido?
I think this... Foxer, what was the question?
Okay, it was basically just, what's the panel's favourite way to relax?
Oh, that's easy. Ice Cube bath.
Damn.
Ice Cube bath into playing Forza Horizon 5.
Ah, boop. Oh, he is here. Hang on. I thought you were doing something else this evening.
No, I said, as always on a Monday, I am dealing with, right up until 5 o'clock, consultancy.
No, I thought you were going to meet what's-his-face.
No, that's people up in Epsom. I'm in Cornwall. That's the other Alex.
I thought
He's meeting Glyn this evening.
I was saying, with them.
Friday and Saturday showing Glyn and Jack around Cornwall.
Well, I didn't know that.
There were pictures put in the WhatsApp group of us.
I'm about as aware of things as a blind bat in a cave.
Okay, and also, what was the issue with Ko-fi at the beginning?
Nothing. Not from my end, anyway.
Foxer was saying she had an issue with Ko-fi.
No, it's just that she
it's just the fact that I don't really understand how and why to use it as a social media account.
Okay, Kofi, you really don't use the social media account. It's basically a social media bolt-on. So basically, it allows you to turn your Instagram, your Twitch, your Twitter, your YouTube, all these things into a way, even before you're monetized on those things, people can support you. People can buy you a Ko-fi or a coffee. And basically, that's what it is. It's a case of, I've done this stuff. If you think it's helpful, please, contribute. And in your case, it's buying bags of ice for your baths.
Yes.
Right.
And
So-
team,
So
I don't
you
get
could
how
actually,
you
you
have
could
a
act- you could actually put it as, please buy me some ice cubes.
fair, but my redhead, I need to solve first.
Yeah. Anyway, 96831 asks. Oh, sorry, Fox. Are you going to say something? I wasn't sure if you were saying just Timu generally, or did you have something to say?
So, quick thing, team. I do not understand how people can use saunas. How do you not cook?
Oh, they're lovely, but what's better is to swim in the Baltic afterwards.
Yeah. Each to their own.
Like, I'll swim in the Baltic. I won't go in a sauna. I will literally die in a sauna.
Nice way, Foxo. I've really got to take you at some point. I've got to take you and Dragon, because if you like cold water swimming, up to Narvik, because swimming in the Arctic is just, it's another level. The water is just so clear. It's crystal like. It's just
welcome
beautiful.
to it, madmen. A lot of you.
Are you trying to kill me?
Anyway,
Actually, you swim.
can we-
Basically, the thing is, you go for the swim in it for about a couple of minutes, and then you
Yeah.
get out and go into sauna, and you warm up to a normal temperature.
Anyway, can we just right? So, next question is from 9631, who asks, "Why are the Imperial Japanese escort destroyers and escort ships overlooked?" Partially because the Imperial Japanese Navy themselves kind of started that whole trend. It wasn't seen as an honourable posting, nor was it seen as one of great importance by some of the upper echelons. And after the war, everyone focuses on the fact that, well, they, a lot of the histories teach, a lot of the pop histories teach, the US subs bodied their way into the convoy system and destroyed it, which kind of, in the pop history, basically makes people go, well, the escorts can't have been all that good and worthy of attention, can they? Now, this is a bit of a shame, because the Japanese created a dizzying variety of both purpose-built and converted anti-submarine warfare assets and escort assets. But for my
troubles was they created this variety.
Pardon?
One of the troubles was they created this variety.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the reasoning for why they are overlooked. Okay, so now grab one from Discord.
No, that's one of the reasons why they are bodied so much. It's that the Japanese created such a dizzying variety of systems. If you consider what's the major advantage the British have in the Battle Atlantic?
Standardization.
Well, yeah, but that's
Yes.
not
To a degree.
But yes,
VNW class destroyers, Flower class corvettes,
yes,
and Hunt class destroyers. And whilst it's going to sound weird, that makes it easier to upgrade them. That makes it easier to train for them. That it makes it easier to generate forces and know they're going to have roughly the same capabilities.
Yes, Alex. The point was just, it was not whether or not they got bodied. It was, why are they not so well known? That was the reason I was moving on, is because we addressed that question.
That's
Yes,
easy
but that's
answer,
also.
though.
But the reason they're not well known is because it's people presume they were bodied, so they don't bother looking into them. But the reason they are bodied is partially because the Japanese do create so many different types, and whilst there are types which are very good, there are also types which are very meh. Not bad, just meh. Aggressively meh. And the thing is, because of the fact that they're all sort of these small numbers, they can't do enough force generation from them. And so realistically, the Japanese are kind of hoisted by the fact they don't put enough effort behind it till they need to, because their own experience from Model 1 had been that submarines were something you could deal with quite easily, because they basically dealt with them at the end of World War 1 in the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
They hadn't realistically had a major submarine threat in World War 1.
Yeah. So, Timu asks, thoughts on the renationalisation of the railways in the UK? They're not really being renationalised because they were never privatised.
It's weird.
Yeah, it's not really a renationalisation because it was never privatisation.
It was privatization in terms of we're going to let private companies run the profitable bits, and the state is going to maintain keep doing the unprofitable bits. And theoretically, the amount of money they're going to pay us for doing the profitable bits is going to allow us to pay for the unprofitable bits of running a railway.
And even then, at first, they tried to foist the unprofitable bits off on a private company, but Railtrack proved decisively why you can't do that with a string of fatal accidents. And Network Rail had to be created to do things. And to be fair, Network Rail has gotten better and better and better at doing their job more and more cost effectively and to a better quality over the 25 years it's been running.
Network Rail are great. I have no problem. I never have problems with Network Rail.
I know. I just want to. You do have.
I have problems with the companies running above network that run the rail services, but I don't have problems with Network Rail.
Yeah, this is one thing that I just have always mantra. My mantra is this: a railway company will have a greater chance of success than failure as an average aggregate if the same entity owns the track and the trains, and that just is, generally. Because the entity that owns the track and the trains, if run by a sound management, will have a vested interest in service quality being good and safety being high. Because both of those things, if applied correctly, will lead to profit. It's only with incompetent management, and you can get that in private and public sectors, that things go wrong. Or if one company doesn't own all of the enablers that enable service to be conducted, basically.
I do love the way there are people who will turn around and tell me that you cannot get the straight face say that you can never get incompetent managers in the private sector, and I go, have you ever worked in the private sector?
I am not defending.
You don't get them. No, you get them. You get some really incompetent ones in the private sector. Usually, there's someone's son or daughter.
Yeah, this is the thing. It's like I will defend both state and private systems of railway ownership, but I will say it doesn't matter which system you have. Both, if you can do whatever system you like, but A, you need a railway conscious management, whichever one, and B, the entity needs to own everything. The track, the trains, everything.
A lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I mean, look at Switzerland. They have both. They have large private companies. In I can name a few: the Bern-Luchberg Simplon Railway, the Bodensee-Toggenburg Railway, and the proliferation of Swiss narrow gauge railways that are all privately owned and run.
Yes, I have friends who own one.
Yeah, and then you have the Swiss Federal. You and I are going to talk about that in a second, because that is news to me. But then you've got the Swiss Federal Railway, which is state-run, and a bunch of other private railways that have the levers. It's even better.
Do you know which is the narrow gauge railway in Switzerland, which still occasionally runs steam trains as part of their regular service?
That depends. That could apply to any number of them. There's a few.
Up mountains.
Oh, you mean
again?
You mean the I can see it on the tip of my tongue. Little green engines, red carriages, was closed during the electrification, so never got electrified. That one's reopened after it. Oh, come on. I can see it on the Brunig line. Right, it's the station. Brienz Rothorn. There we go. Took me a second to get there.
Yeah.
Took me a second to get there.
Well, but... I know both them, and I know another line because of my family who's lived out in Switzerland and my friends who are from Switzerland.
Oh, happy noises. But yes, so
if I have to go do some filming in Switzerland for the Swiss Navy videos, which I'm considering doing at some points, I will see if I can somehow swing the budget to take you with me.
Yay! I have always wanted to go to Switzerland. I have been, but anyway. So just very quickly finish my point. After that lovely diversion, the common denominator between these various railways is something that a lot of railway companies used to have, and when they lose, they tend to have problems. And this goes for both national and state-run entities. Involvement at the local level exceptionally closely with the communities they serve. Railway conscious management, aka most of the managerial staff of both SBB and the private railway companies will have been working for that railway company or in railways for the majority of their careers. Either having started at a lower level or having gone into that environment as one of the few environments they've known and have a good amount of experience in it. And if you put those two factors together, you normally get a decent, well-run railway. But where you see private enterprise and state enterprise fail is when they lose that. So British Railways lost that community touch and that railway conscious management, and look what happened to it. It only got those things back after 30 years of being run by the state, and therefore those parameters returned because people were now in positions of power after 30 years who understood both the railways and the communities they served. Hence why we got the successful revitalization of BR just prior to privatization. And the US railroads privately across the board basically lost that local community, and they might have still had railway conscious management up until about the 90s when they brought in CEOs from outside the railways to take over, but they lost that community spirit in the 60s and 70s and never recovered it. There's a reason
they basically view railways as a different form of truck.
Yeah, this is why if you look at the railways that are doing well in the US, that have good, well-maintained track and provide a very good service, it's not the big class ones. It's class 2 and down. The railways that are, they're big, but as you descend in size, but from class 2 downwards, they usually have managers who are railway conscious, and they're usually of a size where they maintain those links with the community. And you'll look at a lot of them and you'll go, a lot of these railways have STEAM programs, or they run heritage things on the side. They provide services to the community, and their track is well maintained. Public and private isn't the issue. It's those two key factors: railway conscious management and community focus. Am I coming through all right? I'm not dropping in and out, am I? No, I'm coming through okay. No gaps in my sentences. Yeah. Good, very good. Nope. Very good, very good. Right, okay. So the next question is one from YouTube. So boop. YouTube Minecraft Watcher asks, "What if Frederick III of Germany didn't die of cancer or just didn't smoke?" So if Frederick III doesn't die, aka the Kaiser that was supposed to succeed Wilhelm III, it's gonna depend on how quickly Frederick III can be rid of Bismarck, or how Frederick III can deal with Bismarck. Because what Frederick III and his wife Kaiserine Victoria, who was Princess Victoria, or as Victoria of England knew her, Vicky, they had plans to liberalize, as they saw it, Germany along British lines. What they saw as the successful constitutionalism of the British royal family. Now, how successful that would have been when you run into the Byzantine web of feudal politics that was the German Empire. Given that, yes, Germany was an empire, the various heads of state under the Prussian monarchy still retained influence and titles. Let's not forget that. The German Empire was very much a weird state, not a unitary one. I
think I don't want to jump too much in on this, but I do think actually they'd have been. I think the thing is they'd have worked with Bismarck for longer than Kaiser Wilhelm managed to do.
Yeah,
they'd have worked with him in terms of he'd have probably thought he was getting his own way while they were putting their own people in positions. Because that's very much their methodology, is to put their own people into spots and slowly build up the things around them.
Yeah. Although you probably still would have had the same thing. Ruin on, please. Ruin on.
What's Ruin on doing?
We literally had a discussion about this. Don't mess with the question log without running it by me first. If I've started and we're in progress. Because we've already got that. Just... Please.
Wait, I'm exactly what I've done for the last 3 months.
Yes, but we had a discussion where I asked you to not do that without asking me first, so I know what you're going to do before you do it. Never mind. Just...
Fleet will remember this.
Right. Okay, so Frederick III of Germany. So we did that. In terms of naval warfare, you'll probably see a fleet built up to at least enable the Germans to thoroughly body either Russia or France, but probably not both.
It will be very different. Their relationship with Britain, you could end up with an Anglo-German alliance about the same time as the Anglo-Japanese alliance.
And if not an alliance, then maybe a close partnership with a sort of
yes.
Yeah.
But you could end up with it being the tripartite alliance, being Britain, Germany, and Japan.
Yeah, which would unfortunately steer France into some sort of pact with Russia and possibly Italy.
Well, it could lead to a very different Russo-Japanese war because if the Germans are just as allied with the Japanese as the British are, and let's say it's the German army which has been helping the Japanese army, and the Royal Navy which has been helping the Navy, then there could be some issues for Russia, some massive issues in that scenario because, let's put it this way, it's one thing Britain being Japan's ally and knowing that we have to keep very clear of British ships and, there's been an accident, we're going to be very apologetic. Something fighting a land war and knowing that your next door neighbour, who has the most powerful army as far as you're concerned in Europe, is also their ally.
And it's glaring pointedly at you.
Thing.
Yeah, it is glaring pointedly at you, going like.
There's a scenario where if the Russians do something stupid, or the Russians and the French do something stupid, like preemptively declare war on Germany in this scenario, then they find themselves. You have the British, probably Italians and Germans and Austrians and Japanese on one side fighting the Russo-French in 1905.
That ends only one way.
Yes. Very badly for the French and the Russians.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So, your bank of watches. That's that. I want to get the next. So okay, there we go. So there we go. Because then this lets me know when I have done them, and Ruinon gets to relax and enjoy being hands-off moderator, which is what she's supposed to be.
Out, making your things nice and neat.
Honestly, I've managed to get a system now because I've got the button, so it works. So I can just go.
Yeah.
So I can go get this Discord, YouTube, and it's nice and smooth, and I've got it.
So what you're telling us that you press that button and that button works.
Indeed.
Yes.
Ruinon has helped me set it up quite well. Without her, this wouldn't be possible.
They're a rare Alki one, you know that, right?
What?
If anyone plays tabletop will understand.
Right, okay. So, YouTube Minecraft Watcher, what if SMS Der Flinger from November 12th, 1918 appears today?
That's museum ship.
I'm not sure.
From 1912, the Flinger?
No, 1918.
In 1918.
I'm not sure.
Even 19. It'll be a museum ship.
I'm not sure the Germans would see it that way. The German Republic would probably want it scrapped as a symbol of imperial oppression.
No. It's World War I imperial oppression, but also this is going to sound strange with the current rearmament program Germany's going through to try and boost themselves up. Having a symbol of armaments, which has nothing to do with the World War II era, to rally around the cause, would be incredibly attractive.
Yes,
because it doesn't have any stains from anything else on it.
I mean, while technically Der Finger and her crew themselves don't have any stains, that is true. Imperial Germany was not a pleasant country to. Well,
that's enough.
Yes, but it's not the Nazis.
That's enough of a breathing room, okay? That's enough breathing room.
They literally had an imperial coup attempt a couple of years ago. Are they really going to want to risk giving them a symbol to rally around?
The Imperial coup attempt a couple of years ago was absolutely twaddle, in the nicest way. In terms of capability, it ranks slightly below the people who trying to do a coup in Bolivia and crashed their helicopter. And the only one time anyone found out they were actually attempting something was after the people started recovering the wreckage of the helicopter. Okay? It's like ranked slightly below that in terms of actual capability and potentiality for succeeding. So, I don't think the federal government in Germany is worried.
Yeah. Alright, okay, museum ship. Happy.
Yes.
Akazuki asks, what other purposes could have been given to the Atlanta and Junio class AA cruisers post-war? The problem you've got with the Atlantas and the Junio subclass is that post-World War II, they've been somewhat overtaken by events. Either they lose some 5-inch mounts to become more stable and get some 3-inch tubs, but at that point, people would ask, well, why aren't we just using... We can spare the crew to run 2 Sumners or Gearings for the same cost as this Atlanta, and it has, like, 1 less gun turret. And they're not really big enough to be converted into missile cruisers. Well, the tech isn't even there when they're still around and active. They're very much a design of the period. And that period is very, very brief. And unfortunately, post-war events do overtake them somewhat. Bone meal...
Fleet?
Yes.
Okay. The major issue for them was that they were not produced in enough numbers to make it economical. You could do all that, including missile conversions on their hull. They're big enough. They'd have been baby missile ships, but you could have done that. But the thing is, the Americans just don't build enough of them for that to be justifiable. There's no benefits in the scale. It's not even the crewing size, because there are advantages to having a larger vessel like Atlanta over a Gearing if you actually have enough numbers to do enough force generation of them. Because if you want to operate in the North Atlantic and various other places, you actually like the slightly bigger vessel. And that was part of the things that they were moving. So actually they were quite disappointed they didn't have enough Atlantas to make it viable, which is why the Atlanta's hull is then reused for things which come after World War II. But literally, it's because during the war, they didn't build enough. Because they were building out a load of destroyers, and in the stability requirements of the Pacific, you can get away with the destroyers. You don't need the stability profile of the cruiser hull. Even the very light cruiser hull of the Atlantas. So you were right, but I'm just adding some more context. You needed more context added onto it, because it's one of those things of, you're right, but I don't think you realised why you were right.
Yeah,
so that's why I was adding the context.
Hey, they're never going to turn down extra context. Although I do wish you wouldn't phrase it like a correction. I don't mind the Alex corrections when they're corrections, but if you're just giving context, you don't have to...
The nicest way I've said, the most used phrase today has been, that is a very interesting idea. However, I think if we consider in the current context, you might want to move from that idea to... And I have literally used that phraseology about 24 times. So, in the nicest way, it's probably the phraseology that's going through my mind.
Yeah, you're still in talking to idiots mode rather than relaxing and ramblings mode.
Clients, not idiots. I never called them idiots. They're clients.
I didn't say you did. I just did.
Yeah.
Bowmill Boy asks, could the frigate assigned to protect the nuclear deterrent assist in the air defense of Scotland if it's a 31, 32, or 26? It can defend. It can defend the area around where it is, wherever that frigate happens to be. But that's only gonna be self-defense to
No.
the same extent that the frigate would defend itself. But that's
Basically,
it.
it's just basically the easy answer is no.
Yeah, but I just wanted to clarify that, do
The big problem we have in the UK is that every time everyone looks at getting some land-based air defence, the Royal Air Force takes that as being a threat to the survival of the air service and will go to war against you for it.
They seem to have
This is why the army has to be very careful. Well, we have CAM, we have Land Scepter. Have you noticed how we don't have Patriot? We don't have anything of that equivalent.
No, we don't. Which is
That's because basically the RAF will allow you to have Land Scepter, point defense, for their air bases and key installations, but otherwise it's the fighters which are going to do it.
And to be fair, there's also the argument that you need point defense missiles, and things that can deal with incoming cruise missile strikes is one thing. Anything bigger is it? You get what I mean?
Better to deal with it further away, and I do agree with that. But the trouble is, every time I hear it, they make reference to the Battle of Britain in their arguments, as if that is the be-all and end-all of all air fights. And don't get me wrong, there is actually a think tank in Australia which keeps arguing like that the Australians are going to be fighting the Battle of Britain over Northern Australia against the Chinese in like 5 years' time, and that's their argument for everything that they believe Australia needs to procure. So yeah, it just seems to me that honestly, the Battle of Britain, it was a glorious piece of history, and there's some really cool stuff there, and it is some really good information, really good history. But keep pretending that's going to be refought again, just more high tech, is the same as the people who want to refight World War I in more high tech.
I will point out that the RAF jail cell defending itself kind of has a point.
Oh yeah, they do.
Last time the UK went to acquire a whole bunch of air defense, decided on nuclear SAMs, and then gutted the RAF. But that's just me.
Yeah, I can completely understand them. In the UK Treasury system, it does make sense. I'm not critiquing them with that one. In the way the Treasury runs it, in actual, anyone who was actually thinking about UK defence and security as a whole was actually being sensible. It wouldn't be a case of you have one or the other. It would be a case of, well, of course we need some area defence systems as well, because we have some pretty important targets, and we prefer to have, if anyone does manage to bust for our fighter line, to have something else before they get to the point defence missiles.
Yeah, it's literally just that meme from El Dorado with just like two people going, both is good.
Yes, it's like, I would, if I was in charge of it, it'd be literally things like, do I want a Patriot-like system? Maybe not Patriot, but a Patriot-like system for Faslane. Yes, I do. Where the ballistic missile submarines are based, I do. Do I want one for probably Edinburgh, London, Manchester, Birmingham, Cardiff? Probably for the major cities and the capital cities, centres of government, it would be sensible to have a bit of an area defence going on.
Mm-hmm.
Major naval bases, those sort of things, yes. I'd like point defences for all the other things that need to be defended, but I'd like some also, as well as the point defence missiles, as well as the fighters doing the cap over the North Sea and North Atlantic and all these things, I would like something behind them to provide that extra layer. Because as I keep explaining to people, defense of ships and the reason why warships and the arguments when people use them as simplistic as this weapon system versus this weapon system or etc. is wrong is because it's an aggregate of the weapon systems. It's an aggregate of the layers involved of a task of an individual ship, of a task group, of a task force, of how well it's going to be defended and how it's going to survive in operations. And it's the kind of, to me, when I look at the UK defense, I'm just going, where are the layers? Where are the layers?
Where are the layers, Jim? Where are the Where are the layers? Where are they?
It's just, and you think about it. How, and some people tend to go, well, where would we put them? I'd go, well, what you do is, those big motorways we have running up and down the country. There are quite a lot of laybys usually stuck on them, and I would add some extra laybys, which we would know the positions of, and basically, if there's a major conflict, the launchers and the various things drive out to those laybys, and they have a nice concrete stand to sit on them, And you can put them in every single lay-by, very quick to get to, and that's why they set up to provide air defense for the area. And then they can move to another one after they've fired, and another one, and you can keep moving them around so they can't be easily targeted. And that's very basic infrastructure. And by the way, that's copying that straight out of the Finnish, Swedish, Norwegian, quite a few nations' textbooks. And infrastructure-wise, would anyone in the country complain about some extra motorway laybys?
No.
No. So what's the next question?
Next question is from Akazuki, who asks, what if a Midway-class carrier swapped with USS Yorktown at the Battle of Midway in 1942? The Midway has Yorktown's name and has similar machinery damaged. It's still a Midway with Midway's air group, I would expect. And it's going to be more likely to survive any hits that return to it if the battle goes exactly the same. What put Yorktown down with her damage, even if a Midway class has similar damage, is probably not going to put a Midway down.
No, because the Midway actually has the torpedo defense and everything else that they wanted to put into things. This is the point I often make, is that all these ships designed in this period were horrendously compromised to deal with the reality of the treaties. We all know they were compromised.
Yep.
You know?
Mm-hmm. That was nice and simple. Steve Clark asks, Alex and Fleet, in which person, in your opinion, in quotation marks and capital letters, is most responsible for screwing the French Navy post-1870? Now, in my personal opinion, there are more than one person who deserve blame. But if I am forced to narrow it down post-1870, it's got to go for Théophile Aube? Sorry, Lorient. Oh my god, that name. Hyacinth Lorient Théophile Aube. He's the person who was Minister of the Marine from 1886 to 1887. And while that is a short tenure, he was the Minister of the Navy who stopped construction on various battleships that the French were building, resulting in the French going from, and losing basically until they got basically well into the pre-dreadnought era, their fairly respectable 4-year build time, and having them slip to 10 to 6 years, depending on how good the yards were feeling. Because up to that point, up to when he stops that regular drumbeat of construction and has that pause, the French have managed to get themselves down to 4 years keel laying to commission, which, while it isn't Royal Navy speeds at times, for capital ships in the 19th century, that's not so bad.
But he is interesting. He is very, very interesting as a person, and I do agree with you. I just think you're being a bit polite about it.
Oh no, I am. Believe me. Like, I'm being broadcast sensitive.
Yeah, the guy's a twit.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the nicest. It's the strongest language I will use online.
Yes.
He was the guy who basically you know, we all have this friend who basically the moment they see a newspaper article which goes, this is the cool thing, will immediately buy 20 of them.
Yep.
Without thinking, will I look like a prat wearing this?
Yeah. YouTube Minecraft Watcher asks, would his idea of the ICBM interception system, I've dubbed it Nimrod, for nuclear interception missile rapid onset delivery, using silo-based hypersonic missiles to gain and maintain heat radar guidance and proximity detonation capability to blow them out of the air, work? In terms of practicality, yes, systems similar to that exist. The US maintains a few batteries of them. in particular. I think there's one battery in the silo fields and one battery in Alaska. But in terms of logistically actually protecting anything beyond either a point defense area against full salvo strength or defending a nation against a very, very limited salvo of incoming warheads, no. The logistical and financial cost of deploying such a system in such a way to provide guaranteed protection to a nation of any significant size is prohibitive. The US reckons it could deal with a launch from North Korea with the Korean missiles that can actually reach the US with their non-MIRVed warheads. And it's also rated to deal with accidental launches or rogue launches from nations like Russia and China. Say 1 or 2 missiles that are MIRVed. But it is not; those systems are not and will never be rated against any form of significant salvo weight. I mean, look.
This is where some of the stuff around Golden Dome has got particularly interesting, because it is more theoretically possible now.
Yeah.
It's incredibly expensive. I don't think it's going to be viable for a lot of nations to do it, but it's more possible now.
Yeah, Golden Dome's looking at it the only practical way you can, which is get them while they're in orbit, or get them in the boost phase. You don't try and get them when they're coming down.
But I think that's going to cause other interesting issues with people.
Oh yeah, like, Golden Dome is the only practical way to do it, but that practical way to do it is still looking at a budget for realistic, decent operability.
Well, there is nukes.
Even then, even with... Do you mean nukes as in nukes on the interceptors, or do you mean nukes as in we just have our own nukes to make sure...
I mean nuclear interceptors.
Even then...
Yeah, the trouble is, the problem of using nuclear interceptors is they actually blind you as well when you're trying to hit the targets.
Yeah.
And also, you've still got the same... You've got to deploy them everywhere.
But in an all-or-nothing situation, it's one of the few things that you can have a good chance of guaranteeing they're not going to hit you because they've just been atomized.
Well, yes, but again, you still have the problem of deployability at scale. You would still have to deploy masses and masses of those nuclear-capable IBMs to guarantee you'd nail every single incoming warhead.
Yeah, but in a large-scale war, you're going to have to do that anyway, no matter what you do.
Not... No? You're not? You wouldn't deploy nuclear IBMs unless you're deploying nuclear IBMs. It's not something you can deploy... It's a program you would have to work up for years, possibly decades.
Yeah. No, but my point is that if you're trying to protect against a single ICBM, and I'm trying to get this right.
I'm not quite sure what you... I'm sure you... I'm not quite...
I'm going to say what I think Foxo is saying. Basically, is if you're defending against a single one, you can fire many interceptors. But if you're defending against a whole group of missiles coming in, you basically set off the nuke in roughly their path to take out a whole set of them.
Well, yes.
So you try and take out multiple with the same warhead.
Because against conventional interceptors, you can always bait them with duds.
Mm-hmm.
And it's much easier to fire off an additional ICBM that's just full of decoys than it is to intercept all the decoys.
Yeah, like I get that, but
which is why the only absolute is a nuclear weapon that would care about the decoys. They'll get them all.
Oh yeah, like I say, you would still have to deploy a nationwide network of silo-based hypersonic nuclear-tipped IBMs. When I say hypersonic, as if it's a surprise, but it's not. It's a weapon designed to go into orbit. It's going to be hypersonic.
Yeah,
but
I was wondering why you felt the need to emphasize that. I was sort of going,
yeah,
are you just have you been infected by the same drug I was worrying people
No.
were infected with this afternoon, the buzzword
Yeah.
virus?
No, I suppose it's because the question itself included the word, so I was just kind of,
Yeah, emphasizing
But
it.
but yeah,
I see
you
that.
would, but yeah, you would still need a prohibitively expensive network of silos to guarantee coverage of the entire nation, even with nuclear IBMs.
Yeah. And actually, speaking of that, and this is off topic, but it's something which I did think was more ramblings than anything else. What would you call that being infected with desire for buzzwords? Is it buzzworditis? Is it buzzwordius?
No.
What is it called the disease when people they can't seem to speak other than using a buzzword?
Chasing the new, constantly
Yeah,
using the
but
latest buzzwords. Never
that just
really
sounds so nice. I want something which sounds as annoying as it is.
A tech bro. What have you buzzwords for new technology? A tech bro. Don't worry, AI is going to revolutionize personal assault rifles.
Oh, yeah.
So Steve Clark asks.
Actually, Roman did a good one. Speaking corpo or corpo speak.
No, that's not really the using buzzwords.
I mean, it is though. Have you ever actually
It
stood
is.
in a middle middle management meeting?
Oh yes, many.
Steve Clark asks, Fleet and Foxer, what is your opinion is the worst canon crime in sci-fi fantasy which should be shot? I'm not sure I quite understand. Do you mean all of science fiction and fantasy?
Yes.
Oh,
What is the thing you hate the most?
Oh, he means what? Do you mean a crime against the canon of a particular setting?
Yes.
Is that what he means?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Oh.
Okay, I'll go first. I know it's not particularly big in the grand scheme of things, but in Warhammer 40k, there was something called the Indominus Crusade. And in that, there was a part called the Plague Wars.
Mm-hmm.
GW decided to move the Plague Wars from the end of the Indominus campaign to the beginning of the Indominus campaign. So the Indominus Crusade now makes no sense. And they put out 2 separate books of lore that contradicts each other. And now we don't really know what happened. And it's only like the Indominus Crusade and the Plague Wars are like the return of Rowboat Girly Man.
Okay, whilst I am a Russ forever, even I find that a bit cruel to Robute.
Rowboat Girly Man and his quest to circle back on himself.
And it's just like, okay, it was so interesting to watch him beat the hell out of Mortarion and just sort of go ham and show why he almost fell to Slaanesh. But you've just messed with the timeline so badly.
I'm sorry, Ruinon, that's brilliant. Rowboat Gorilla Man. Robot Gorilla Man. Robert Booty Man. Oh, I love it. Akazuki asks, the Japanese get a midway class aircraft carrier.
Hopefully, you didn't answer yours.
What?
It was
oh yeah, sorry. No, yeah.
Yay.
I know, he just doesn't care about his fans sometimes.
Oh, you could take a running conk at yourself, you can.
Steve Clark, I will point out, the final season of Game of Thrones never happened.
Honestly,
honestly, be mad at something that never happened, okay? Okay.
No, because Tyrion suddenly went from being actually quite interesting and quite smart to being absolutely stupid.
Yeah. Honestly, like, crime against canon. I'm not really that deep into any of. I basically, the problem with me is I have my toe in a bunch of different settings, but I'm not deep into them, so I'm not so deeply attached that I really. This is why I'm really struggling to think of one that I go, that needs to die. Because it has to be a crime against canon. And I'm not up with the canon of all the settings to know what retcons have been made or not. So again, like, if Dragon was here, he'd probably have one for Star Wars. But I don't have one for Star Wars. As I say, I'm not deep enough in to be aware of what's changed and what hasn't.
I can give you one for Star Wars.
No, I'm just trying to think.
The entire Disney timeline.
Yeah.
I'd say more the problem with Star Wars is the fact that the amount of people who've only just realized that an organization the size of the Jedi Order and what it would have been could not have been wiped out so quickly as they try and pretend, or as so easily.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think. Come on, think. What setting am I familiar with? I can actually comment on.
There are none of Glenn's settings I have problems with, but that's because mainly whenever he does something I explain to him, I have arguments. This is the one problem for him in being friends with someone who reads his books.
Okay, also, honorary mention, Gundam. Especially the Space Gundam. Because why does a Gundam pilot a Gundam that pilots a Gundam that pilots an even bigger Gundam? Why?
Oh god, I am really struggling. Cause I'm not deep in to any fandom to really make a comment here and say something that screams out to me. I hated this change. I bet you. I think.
Another one. I've got another one for Warhammer. Why you keep thinking?
Go on then.
Right. Conor Drago, the Matt Wardian. I quite like him. Space Marine, who
The funny
was
man.
super awesome. Burned down the Garden of Zeech. Tore one of Zeech's labyrinth fortresses from the sky. Killed so many Chaos demons. They didn't kill so many Khornate demons. They didn't want to play with him anymore. And told Slaanesh to go screw itself. In the 5th edition Chaos Codex, they made it sound like he had come before Chaos and fallen. Fans and Matt Wardian Space Marines didn't like that. So they ended up retconning it in the 6th Demon Codex, so that's not actually him. It's just someone that looks exactly like him in the same armor as him, and they gave it a different name. And then they've gone back on their word and suggested it is him again recently. But he's also coming out of the warp to help the Space Marines. Yes.
In other words, basically the thing is what they have him doing is he's basically playing an interesting role where no one's quite sure which side he's on or what he's doing, and they keep mucking it up by trying to provide explanations, whereas they'd be better off just keeping their mouth shut and leaving it as mystery. Yeah,
it's like, has he fallen to Chaos? But we can't fall to Chaos. Yeah.
Is he working to the Emperor's grand plan somehow? Yeah. There are other characters like that, and it's you sit there and go, just shut up and stop trying to give me information. Just let it be a mystery. Let me wonder. It's more fun that way. Anytime you add more information, you just muck it up.
Okay, I do actually have my mine. Because it's technically sci-fi, even though it's a punk setting. The absolute butchering that the timeline and factions histories of Dystopian Wars got after it got taken over by the new company. They took these well-ordered, utilitarian-looking designs and made them look funky and stereotypical for the certain nations, and look at this, it's a they took the sort of reduced nature of it and the somewhat realistic way in which the nations were fitting together, and the fact that they were separate nations and entities, and they just dumbed it down and made it they kidified it. They kidified it. That's the only way I can describe it, and can't look at it and go, you were so great with a realistic grounded, well, not realistic and grounded, but the way everything looked like, you know, you give a Victorian a nuclear reactor, what's he gonna build? If that makes sense. Whereas now it's give a steampunk artist a theme and what's he gonna draw. If you can get the difference between those two styles. One was, we've given the Victorians high tech, dear God, what have they made? The other is, they got a generic steampunk artist and asked him to draw something.
Yeah, I get that.
So, Akazuki asks, the Japanese... Also, hi, James. Nice to have you here as always. Pleasure having you here.
Have you had some good food, James?
For a while.
Did you get some good food before you came here? Did you get some good food before you came here?
It's currently in the oven, making homemade lamb doner kebabs.
Ooh, lucky sod.
I know. Sorry for making everyone hungry.
No, don't worry.
Everyone okay? Haven't spoken to any of you in a very long time.
We exist.
No, I'm fine.
Akazuki asks, the Japanese had a Midway-class aircraft carrier in 1939 with an instruction manual on how to operate it appearing out of thin air. How would it affect Japanese carrier construction in the future, and how would it affect the war? It's an extra carrier hull, so they're going to be pleased with that. In terms of actual construction, they're literally just going to look at it, look at the plans for Taiho, and go, oh, so our design style is proceeding in the right direction. Carry on.
Pretty much. Basically, the extra carrier is going to be very, very useful, because if you think about it, if that comes through in 1939, that'll be worked up and nicely ready. So for, you know, if you consider for Pearl Harbor, there's an extra carrier there. If you consider for potentially other operations, they have an extra carrier.
Yeah.
And that is going to have an impact on things.
Although she is going to need to be rearmed. She's going to need to...
Yes.
She's like that, but then again, that could take place during the workup period. They're going to have to... they could probably...
And they've got 2 years of peace to work it out and do it. So,
the only thing I would say, do they keep her engines as is? Or do they look at re-engineering her with turbines they actually have parts for? That's the real thing I'm going to ask at this point. Because that is a big concern. Because on the one hand, I can see them... Well, for one thing, even if they could get parts from the US, those turbines designs for the Midways do not yet exist. So
that's more the problem, but honestly, they're going to probably want to take them apart and have a look at them.
Yeah, so
and if they've got all the menu, if they've got all the things, etc., if they can take one apart and look at it, and if they can also, this is going to sound strange, also have the manual for operation on, they can probably build it. And they can upgrade their own turbines to something which maybe isn't quite the same as it, but won't be far off it, if that makes sense.
Honestly, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. She gets opened up, basically, to have a look at, and then when she's rebuilt and recommissioned, she doesn't look like a Midway. She looks more like proto Taiho, in a way, if you get what I'm saying. Like, because they've had to open her up to look inside. When you're building her back up... They
won't open her up that much. In the nicest way, they won't do a full rebuild because that'll take 4 frigging years to do that. We're talking about a 6-month job at maximum.
Yeah, maybe.
Of taking her apart and doing it, but they can do that.
So, YouTube Minecraft Watcher, what if SS Great Eastern appeared today? Instant museum ship. I'm sorry, that is one we can all agree on. SS Great Eastern appearing? Instant museum ship. Brunel's greatest masterpiece. Arguably, depending on who you ask. Instant...
Battle Royale between Drac and Fleet as to who gets to be the curator of her.
Oh no, he's welcome to it if he wants it. Like I say, he's a historian. I'm not a historian. I'm a guy who likes history and makes videos on the internet and happens to know a bunch of historians. Typical Gunnery Officer asks, opinions on the cancelled AM-56 Phoenix successor, the AM-152. Do you think the lack of technology of the time was the reason for the cancellation? And do you think the 152 helped the development of the AMRAM? You want to know my honest opinion on that? And I'll be blunt here. That's the first time I've ever heard of it.
Do they want the nice answer or the non-nice answer?
I suppose they want the true answer.
It fell victim to lobbying, and basically the AMRAM 120 a lobby and the people behind it were pushing that far more as what was the threat that was going to justify having that new long-range missile, especially when you're dealing with stealth aircraft, which could get closer anyway.
And also, to be perfectly honest,
but the problem that's really become comfort is in retrospect is that the Meteor has proved quite so successful. And the reason why the Lockheed Martin are probably being quite so bad at integrating Meteor into the F-35 project is because the moment it is, the Americans don't have anything which can really compete with Meteor in terms of the range it provides for the operator, for those firing it and using it.
Yeah, there is, of course, there are, of course, just very quickly, like AMRAAM is slightly more maneuverable than Meteor, but Meteor has a longer no escape range than AMRAAM does. But
yes.
AMRAAM, if you are firing it, say at oblique angles, you might give you a hit in a range bracket where Meteor might not.
Yes, but Meteor's not designed for that kind of engagement.
I know. I know. I'm just saying. I'm just putting it forward.
I know the stuff comes out and discussions come out, but honestly, it's a case of. So, if I'm in oblique angles, I'm using a Sidewinder. I am not using an AMRAAM, and I am not using a Meteor. Because if I'm at range where it's going to be oblique angles, I am going for the Sidewinder, which is going to be pretty much the instant kill in that scenario.
Yeah.
Okay, the AMRAAM has a backup equivalent if I've run out of Sidewinders and I found myself in that scenario. But in what scenario have I run out of Sidewinders without first running out of AMRAAMs? Doing an engagement.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Because surely I fired off my AMRAAMs first before I've got that close.
Yeah, I will just I'm also Caboose is just like, hey Russian, I know you're behind me. Guess what? AM-9X over the shoulder. Surprise! I do love that about the AM-9X. It's just surprise.
Yeah, it's one of those things of in what scenario do I still have AMRAAMs aboard that I would even be considering using them given this? Yes, it can do it. No.
AM-9X over the shoulder. Surprise, fuckface.
Yeah.
I love that. Nice61 asks, how plausible do you find this German monarchy line if it hadn't been abolished? Wilhelm II to Wilhelm III to Ferdinand I to Frederick IV. What do you think of that? I don't have an opinion on this. I'm not that familiar with the German monarchy at all, even during the time it actually reigned. But
they continue, it makes rough sense, but in the nicest way, that's a big if they continue.
And also, we've no way of knowing what dynastic politics... That is the sensible line, but of course, dynastic politics being what it is, you've no idea what would have happened, realistically. Because dynastic politics being what it is. Typical Gunnery Officer asks, opinions on the Imperial Japanese Navy Taiho. Do you think it's the best armoured aircraft carrier by design in World War II and better than the Illustrious or Implacables?
No.
No. She's bigger than them.
Triple no.
She's bigger than them.
Not really. Look up her stats. Before you say that, look up her stats.
Let me see. She's a lot... I'm getting my ships mixed up again. Never mind. She's not actually as big as I thought she was. Technically not. I'll look at the Implacables because they're bigger. I bet you I'm going to be surprised. Yep. So the Implacables are bigger in basically all aspects apart from length. She's longer than them, which would give her more space for a deck park. But that's the only real advantage I could see here, and the Implacables carry more aircraft anyway, despite being a fully armoured ship with no deck park.
What about speed?
They still have a deck park. They just don't list it because the British don't list deck parking because of the North Sea.
So Taiho could carry 82, but she carried 65 on operations. And Implacable
Fleet,
can
what's
carry
the,
81. Yeah.
Fleet, what's the length to beam ratio in comparison between both?
Taiho is 855 feet long, 89 feet 11 inches wide. Implacable is 700.
Is that overall length or waterline length you're quoting?
For Taiho, I only have one length statistic. With Implacable, I don't have waterline length, but I do have overall length as well. So I'll do overall for both ships.
Taiho is going to be the overall, so you need to work out an actual waterline length then. Which, if someone's got some form of
well, she is slightly faster, but only slightly faster than the Implacables. But it's not by much. Armor protection is... It doesn't say what her...
Okay, so you want her waterline length, right? This is the patrol where I go to Jamie Seedale's Armoured Carrier site. Now, in terms of waterline length, the British one is 730 feet, that's 225 meters. The Japanese one is 822 foot, 3 inches, 253 meters.
Okay.
So basically, she's about she's about 28 meters longer. About 28 meters longer.
I didn't even see...
More.
What is...
But I would also say the Implacables have a 29.2 meter beam to Taiho's 27.4 meter beam. So the Implacables actually have more, whilst they have less length for deck parking, you can actually do more on their deck because you can move your aircraft around more easily because you have more space to move the aircraft. They also have deck edge parking with things for people to slot their tail wheels over the side.
Is there rough comparison of displacement?
In terms of displacement, Taiho fully loaded in terms of full load stand displacement is roughly 30,000 tons. The Implacable in terms of standard displacement is roughly 29,500 tons.
They're very comparable in terms of displacement then. I was just thinking if one of them is a bit bigger than the other means she can technically take a bit more damage based off the amount of hull.
Oh, no, the Implacable is shorter than them, slightly fatter as a design, but is almost as heavy as them. So in a nicest way, the Implacable is far more heavily built and can take better damage, but also the Implacables have far better stability profiles for launching aircraft and can launch aircraft in rougher weathers.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah, I'll second you on that one.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is the third Sea Lord in 1955 was pissed off because he felt that if they'd done the Implacables rather than Victorious, the Royal Navy would have ended up with 4 carriers, which all had like the 2 Implacables and 2 Audaciouses, would have ended up with 4 decent carriers, which could all operate quite heavy aircraft, and could have been quite useful and provide useful ability.
Mhm.
But yeah, it didn't happen.
Indeed.
They'd had Victorious instead, which was really not good.
Stephen Mayer asks, I once heard that propane refrigeration is a fairly simple setup and could have been set up quite early. What would be the most likely time for someone to accidentally develop it, and would this have any changes for naval architecture, as refrigeration is worth quite a few compromises for fresh food, or would this be a dedicated ship and shore facilities item? This is a topic I'm not that familiar with, if in all honesty. I know refrigeration did come in fairly early in the Ironclad period, at least from what we would consider it. Go on, Foxo.
Well,
Yours.
Well, propane is a natural gas that is made by either the refining of natural gas or crude oil. Meaning that it comes in late for a reason. And it's like, yeah. Oh, propane's also incredibly explosive. Which you probably don't want on ships at all. Because it leaks. Like hydrogen. Anyone else?
It wasn't lighter than air, so we'll go to the deckhead, and if that ignites, that tends to be closer to where your head is, so you'll kill a lot of crew if it ignites, just because of the lack of oxygen.
Yeah. Propane is explosive.
Oh, yes. I can tell you that, because I spent last week fighting fires in a container that was powered by propane. It's lovely. And it's bloody hot.
So, what are you all doing on the 13th of November this year?
Celebrating.
That's lovely.
Why is that?
Because I'm going to be giving the Remembrance talk, it seems, at King's College London's Maritime History Seminar Series, the Lawton Series, on the 13th of November this year. So when it gets all invited, etc., there'll be tickets pushed out, and I want everyone to come along, so I can say hello. It'll be in central London.
Probably get out of college. I should be finished by that point, in theory. I hope.
No, poor Fleet won't be able to get away from me. He'll hopefully just spend about a month with me in September, October in Japan, and then he'll come back and go, yes, I'm finally free of them all in November. Hello, you're expected to attend.
What am I expected to attend?
Well, it's the Maritime History series at King's College London, the lectures, and on November the 13th, I've been asked to give the talk.
Ah, I see.
At King's, so it'll be fun. I'll make sure to be advertising it widely and try and get as many people there as possible, because I know that they need lots of people turning up to their events, because they are, as always, justifying their funding.
Mm-hmm. So that's the same thing again. Typical officer asks, opinions on the United States Marine Corps LAR. Do you think it's the United States Marine Corps version of the Army's ACR minus the MBT and Hilo gunship elements? LAR was established in the 1980s. Anyone know what those acronyms mean?
Light armored reconnaissance vehicle.
Yes, that LAR is related. I think it's the amphibious version of the LAV, if I remember correctly.
Because he's saying without the gunship.
It's the LAV 20.
Because the reason that I'm confused is because he's talking about MBT and Hilo gunship elements. Does he mean armored?
The LAV.
He's talking about The light armored reconnaissance battalions. The battalions as a whole, the fact that they use armored vehicles for it. And it makes sense for the US Marine Corps to use such vehicles for it, because honestly, in amphibious operations, helicopters are always in demand. They're always obsessively in demand. So if you try to base anything around using helicopters, you'll probably find yourself in an issue.
Anyone else got anything to add to that? Because I don't really have any comment on opinions on it. I'm not that well versed in US combat doctrine to really make an opinion.
So what was the question again?
Opinions on the United States Marine Corps' LAR. Do you think it's the US Navy's US Marines version of the Army's ACR, but minus the MBT and Helo gunship elements?
No. Yeah. The LARs are... Well, the LAR battalions are full terrestrial. They are only reconnaissance units. They don't have the multi-purpose capability of their army counterparts. Because they're looking at their force structure, they're a lot lighter than their counterparts.
Wait, considering it's only a 256-page text, I'm really surprised you haven't read the US Marine Corps' Concept of Operations from 2001.
Not really something I go looking for, Alex, it has to be said.
It's actually quite a thrilling read for these texts.
Perhaps I'll give it a look.
I have put a link to it in the chat.
Right. You should Minecraft Watch ask, what if Sweden in 1930 started producing the STRV-103? My first reaction to this is how. My second reaction to this is, okay, they have the world's most advanced tank. And my third and most boring reaction is it probably doesn't change anything. Because the Swedes will keep it to themselves. The S-tank. The Swedes will keep it to themselves. The Swedes will keep it to themselves. It'll probably be top secret, held as a, as something that we keep under our hat. And nothing will probably change.
When are they
because
producing
it's
it?
Sweden in 1930.
If they're producing the STRV in 1930?
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
That changes a lot.
They're rebuilding the Swedish Empire in Finland.
Not really. Sweden's got no appetite for that sort of thing by this point.
No, because part of the thing that stops the Swedish getting involved in the Winter War is they saw themselves as underarmed to be involved in it.
Yeah.
You've given the Swedes
a tank which is from 30-something, 40 years ahead.
Yeah. Like, you're probably going to see actual official Swedish volunteers. And if Finland's got access to Swedish arms manufacturing, they're not going to suffer running out of ammo.
In a nicest way, you're talking about a tank which fields a 105mm 62 cal.
Yeah.
With a cable carrying 50 rounds. Honestly, yes. The S-tanks are not designed to really do the assault. They're supposed to be the defense scenarios. But they are going to annihilate the Russians so hard on the defenses that the Russians are going to be forced to withdraw to recover themselves. Because the S-tanks were realistically the defensive systems. They're not supposed to do offensive operations. They really aren't redesigned for it. That's what the Centurions and later the Leopard 2s were.
Yeah, because Finland's probably some of the best possible terrain from them. You've given Sweden the confidence to go in to support Finland, and the large elements that allowed the Soviet army success with breaking through the Mannerheim line, their early KVs and T-34s,
are getting annihilated.
Those
Are
weren't
getting vibe
the
checks, yes.
elements that allowed the Russians to break through the Mannerheim line.
Yeah, it was.
No, it was the Russians actually being allowed to concentrate and mass artillery and masses of infantry rather than being forced to
Yes.
try and snake to Helsinki.
But what allowed them to actually get through the emplacements of the Mannerheim line was the fact that the Finns couldn't effectively take out the armoured elements, which allowed the infantry to get into the trenches and allowed the systematic push you see through the Mannerheim line.
Also, the 103s do carry, they carry three machine guns, 2 fixed, 1 in A scenarios. They carry some illuminating mortars, and they are a 3-person crew. That's going to cause you trouble even trying to push your infantry through. And the thing is, if your infantry can't push through and your armor can't break the hard lines, then you might be able to mass the artillery. But artillery can't take ground on its own. It can only try and destroy an area. And the thing is, if the Finns know that they can hold themselves in defensive positions and they can hold back the Russians, then they might find elements which can go offensive against the Russian artillery forces. That'd be, you rebalance your force, because you go, okay, so yeah, right then, what do we use then to go offensive?
And the Swedes have armor that can go offensive.
Mm-hmm.
I would just like to point out, Steve, yes, Swedish volunteers did fight for Finland, but no elements of the Swedish army did.
Officially.
The Swedes went out of their way to not assist the Finns as a government. Like, the Swedish army didn't allow personnel to go and fight for Finland, which the people wanted to go fight for Finland, they just weren't allowed.
Mm-hmm. Right, next question. Simple gunnery officer, do you think the US is starting to be more conservative in the deployment of their battleships after Pearl Harbor, especially during Midway and not until the Alaskan and South Pacific campaigns that they finally deployed the standards and fast battleships respectively against the IJN forces? That's down to A, lack of assets, B, lack of fuel oil for those assets, and B, the means to get the fuel oil to those assets. The US has a limited number of oilers. It can oil its battleships, or it can oil its fast carrier strike groups in the immediate aftermath of Pearl Harbor and for most of 1942, up until mid to late 42. At that point, the choice is fairly clear. You oil your fast carrier strike groups. And it's only when the US gets stuck in a protracted engagement, like the Alaskan Aleutian campaigns and the South Pacific campaigns, aka Solomon Islands campaign, where you have a fixed engagement area where the battles are taking place. They've got the supply chains running in, set up and stable, and the fast fuel oilers are only doing the final legs of that chain, that the fuel logistics is in place to start bringing these heavy fuel-using assets in that aren't the carriers. So, the fast battleships to the Solomons, the standards to places like the Aleutians and other island campaigns around the South Pacific. That's the reason.
I wouldn't even go that far, Fleet.
What do you mean?
Realistically, how useful would they have been in those early battles of the war?
Well, they wouldn't have been big. Well, they wouldn't have been.
Even if they had the ability to fuel them.
They wouldn't have used it. Well, they would have been off doing other things. So they would have been, if they'd had the ability to move, they would have been off basically where the Japanese carriers weren't. They would have been off bombarding Wake Island. They would have been doing other things with them. They wouldn't have been part of those early carrier battles. They would have been off doing other things.
Yes, but I still think they would have been really conservative with them anyway, because it's not a battleship.
I mean,
Whoa.
I mean, doing a drive-by of Wake Island is fairly conservative. You just show up, shell it, and then off you.
That's how you get them sunk by carriers.
Not if your carriers are engaging their carriers. You would time the operation such that you would.
Yeah, but you have to have and find those carriers first.
Well, that's what intelligence is for. Coral Sea didn't come about by accident. Neither did Midway.
But my point is that in the early war, where they're being really conservative with them, even if they had the assets to use them,
They would have found a use for them.
they weren't in a position to use them.
No, they would have found a use for them. That's a battleship.
They might have.
There are things there are things of risk that is not significant enough to deter their usage that a standard class battleship could be doing in that period.
Okay.
Are they glamorous? Are they war-winning battles? No, not particularly. But are there things the standards can be deployed to do? Yes, absolutely.
That they couldn't have been done. That they couldn't have been taken to do historically.
Yes.
Is the big thing.
Yes. It wasn't the US being conservative. It was, oh shit, mate, we ain't got no fuel. I don't know why I gave the US an Aussie accent there, but it's we ain't got the tankers, Gav. We ain't got the tankers.
Everyone ignore it and just move on. Everyone just ignore it and move on. Quietly and quickly.
That's sort of my point, Fleet. Like, they took them out and used them when they were actually relevant to the type of combat they were going to fight.
There were still operations that they could have done in that early period if the tankerage support had been available. But it wasn't available, so we'll never know what they could have done. We can guess, but we can't know for certain. But once the tankerage became available, they did go out and do things. Bowmill Boy asks...
The war had changed by the time...
Bowmill Boy asks, how effective could modern fighters intercept drones like Shahed? They can't really. Not in a way that's cost effective. With the way
I think you need to go back and restart that. They can intercept them, it's just not cost effective to use them to intercept them.
That's what I said.
But you started off with they can't. And the trouble is, you have to always be careful in that people use the sound bites to undermine you.
I mean,
so, cost effectively, it's not really viable. So that means we can't use them for that role. But they can technically on a technical level.
Yes, but I would argue that using...
I am protecting you from the various interesting people who turn up on the internet to correct people. Because I'm doing it in a nice way before the people do it in the comment section. Because I've had this, because I've made the similar thing as you. I thought, well, I'm being perfectly honest, I didn't carry it on. But they don't listen to the bit after it. They just listen to the first part of the sentence.
I mean, to be honest with you, Alex, I don't care what they say. If they're that idiotic, then I'm just going to let them be idiots.
Yeah, but it's annoying when it fills up your comment section.
I don't have a comment section on most of my videos, so if it gets traffic, I'm not going to complain. If it means
all traffic, good traffic policy.
In this particular case, yes.
Okay. Then what you need to start saying things like Bismarck was the greatest battleship of all time.
Yeah.
And then you get lots of people turning up.
Or basically Bismarck was crap, and then have people turn up and say, oh no, actually she wasn't.
No,
she was the
wereboots don't turn up like they used to. It seems to be now that there seems to be an understanding that in the area around me and Drac that we farm them for aura.
But yeah.
Please stop using modern slang.
But yeah, the best way to deal with drones like Shahed is honestly
But it's true, Fox. So that is what me and Drac do. We farm them for aura.
It's gun based AA. It's basically gun based AA. Probably in the 50 caliber to higher range, but it needs to be connected to fire control. It needs to be connected to some basic radar fire control with fire control computers. Like, gun-based AA can do the job with Shahed, but you need the fire control to go with it to really make it cost-effective. Typical gunnery officer asks, what if the design of the Covenanter tank doesn't have any flaws and was somehow adopted into the UK army? Do you think it'll survive in the battlefield against German tanks if more modern cruiser tanks are introduced? Yeah, we will just remember Covenanter the same way we remember Crusader. If
Covenant without any flaws exists. It's called Crusader.
Yeah, like I say, it's literally, we will just remember... we just won't have Crusader, we'll just have Covenanter, and it'll just be Covenanter, and Crusader's place in history will be taken by Covenanter.
Oh, well, no, Crusader's place in history will be taken by whatever tank comes after Covenanter that is even better.
Well, no, because Covenanter...
Cromwell!
Yeah. You should Minecraft Watcher ask, what if Imperial Germany in 1901 found a portal to an alternate Earth where no humans exist? Basically a world of untapped resources. As long as they basically have to keep it quiet. As soon as anyone else realizes they have this, that is basically threat of war from every single other nation on the planet. Because if they don't threaten war instantly before Germany can tap that, and basically demand it be put under some sort of Concert of Europe mandate, Germany will just gradually subsume the world by increasing its availability of raw materials. Because it'll know where all the raw materials are. And it will go out and get them. Like, you've given Germany access to an entire planet.
Big question is, what drove humanity extinct in that timeline?
I mean, alternatively,
That'd be my first question.
I mean, alternatively, did humanity just never evolve? Did Neanderthals become the dominant primate species and never get civilization? Because Neanderthals just don't have the capacity to do what we can do.
But Fleet, before you say anything, that's not how that's not what anthropology says.
No, it isn't.
They did form societies. They did integrate into societies. It's part of the reason most Europeans are like 11% Neanderthal.
Yes. I'm sorry, Fleet, but you've got quite a lot of Neanderthal in you, and that's not an insult. That's just biological fact.
Well, okay, either way.
And it's like, but if it's not humans that rise up, it's going to be chimpanzees. Because they are very close behind us, development-wise.
Well, either
arguably
way...
we're hamstrung by humans.
Well, yeah, but assuming...
cats.
But assuming that this is a world with no dominant civilizational sentient species, the Germans will just colonize it as best they can. Although it is going to take them a very long time to do. But because it's an alternate Earth, all the geological deposits of raw material should still be in the same places. If it is an alternate Earth, with the same geological processes that have driven the planet through its life. As far as I'm aware, what things live on the surface of the planet don't affect the planet's tectonics in any way. As far as I know.
But it's one of the things that's going to be a very different Earth, because if you don't have any species like us operating in the position we do in the basically ecosystem, you are going to have a very different in terms of geography, because a lot of the human geography elements are not going to be there. A lot of the and what I mean by that is you have to consider how much, in the case of Britain, humanity has shaped the island, and even the whole world. You know, this is one of the problems that you often run into when you start people going, "Oh, we want to remove humans from the landscape." Well, actually, what does that mean? Does that mean you want to remove humans completely from the landscape, or the last 200 years, 100 years, 300 years of humanity involvement in the landscape? Because trust me, there have been a lot of humans involved in this landscape for a long, long time.
The deforestation of the British Isles. Actually, no. You probably end up. I just think about it. You probably end up killing off a lot of Germany. and Europe opening this portal.
Yeah, because of the diseases which come through and all the viruses we're not proof against. Yeah.
And if it's a world that's evolved without humans, then it's a world that's evolved. This world that's probably hasn't lost most of its megafauna, because humans and humanoids were a good portion of the things that drove them into extinction.
Mm-hmm.
Rip the mammoth. Yeah, you've killed a lot of Germans.
Yeah. Just think the giant emus. Just think of the war that they'll be unleashed when they find a portal.
No,
It will take the entire Royal Navy to hold them back.
The emus are descendants of terror birds, their large brethren, who were hunted to the extinction by the Aboriginals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the nicest way, those birds will come back. Those birds will come through for blood. En masse.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think this is a good scenario for Earth. I think in a nice way in this scenario, you end up with the Royal Navy fighting a battle mid-ocean against emus. Defending the survivors of Germany as they try to flee.
Right. Next question. Typical gunnery officer. In terms of the mortar squad or team, in the 1980s onwards, why did most of the motorized armies of the world move into vehicle-mounted or self-propelled mortars rather than foot mortar teams? Basically because you have all the benefits and other downsides. Because a lot of these vehicles and the mortar teams in them are the foot mobile mortar on a base plate it can be removed from. You've basically got all the benefits of mobility with the only thing you need to go a place the vehicle can't go. Take the mortar off the base plate in the vehicle and grab the base plate for putting it on the ground. And then off you go. So there was literally no downside to having mobile mortar teams. At basically every level.
There was also another massive advantage.
Go on.
Logistics.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be honest, which is easier, to bring a load of mortar rounds with you if you are people carrying it, or bring a load of mortar rounds with you if you are in a vehicle?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically, it's one of those things that's just, it's logical, it makes sense, and everybody does it. Basically, it's just, honestly, Caboose has summed it up quite well. Mortar team in truck have more ammo. Yeet.
Also, they are faster to move around because if anyone has spent a day carrying a mortar, which it used to be able to do things like, you know, go and various experience days, you could go and do these things, etc. And yeah, those things are heavy. Those things are very heavy, and in the nicest way, you're not moving fast if you're moving on foot with a mortar.
No,
you are not moving fast in any direction.
No. 96831 asks, why hasn't the Japanese 1500-ton future multi-purpose trimaran been built? Probably because the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force can't decide if it's something they want or not. If it was something they wanted, they would have built it.
Pretty much, yes.
But since...
I think more the debate is whether it's going to be a crewed or uncrewed asset and what it's going to be and role is going to be in that scenario.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see that they are currently having interesting conversations with British about the Type 93 programs, etc. So we'll see. Let's see what comes out of it all.
Typical gunnery officer asks, opinions on the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force DDGs, the Amatsukaze, Tachikaze, and Hatakaze classes. Do you think they're better than the Royal Navy County and Type 42 classes as DDGs? Now, before you jump in, Alex, just let me get my MacGuffin McMuffin set up. Let me get me specs. Let me get me specs, because I'm not familiar with these ships. I just need to get me basic specs, so I can at least basically rule on them. But no, it makes it sound like I'm going to go and grab a meter rule from the classroom. But hey ho, jokes aside. Right, okie dokie. So, which of these are direct? Okay, so first things first, the Amatsukaze is a 1960s era ship. She's not, okay, she is comparable with the counties, but she's not an equivalent to the county. She's very much a first attempt at a guided missile destroyer with lots of 3-inch and a single Mark 13 missile launcher for Tata. She's not bad as DDGs go, given her size and the fact she's a first attempt, but she's not a county equivalent. The Tachikazes are 70s era ships. So they are, I think, if I get my facts right. Yes, they are equivalent to Type 42. So they basically are, they are proper multi-mission destroyers. So they have Hilo, they have Hilo, they have 2 5-inch, they have torpedo tubes for SW. They have an Azeroth launcher, 8 harpoon, single arm for standard missile. Now 42 does have only 1 gun. It doesn't have any anti-ship missiles. And it does have a twin arm launcher for Sea Dart, whereas Tachikaze only has single arm for standard missile. But I would say that 42 is the budget air defense destroyer that the Royal Navy got compared to what it wanted, whereas Tachikaze is a multi-mission destroyer, just a general purpose guided missile destroyer that hasn't skimped on anything the self-defense force wanted. So I would say that while Tachikaze is technically a better all-round combatant, 42 is a budget air defense destroyer that the RN decided on to get in numbers, and that has to be borne in mind when you consider it. Now, the Hatakazes are even later still, being early 80s ships, and the capabilities jump again. So again, 2 5-inch, 2 torpedo tubes, and a similar number of harpoon and standard missiles. Again, though, same thing applies. You've basically got to look at this and go, these are large, multi-purpose ships that haven't skimped on anything. And Type 42, again, are budget air defense destroyers the RN had to accept compared to what they actually wanted. So again, bearing those things in mind, I don't think it's quite fair to compare these various ships. Anyone else got anything to say?
Not particularly.
Alex? Alex?
There's nothing you missed much, that. It's fine.
Wow, I'm getting better. James, anything you want to say? Oh, that's right, he's away. He's eating dinner. That's fine.
Yep.
Pardon me.
Knight 6831 asks if the littoral combat ships had worked without any issues with the Constellation class have happened, and how in that scenario would you get the Constellation class built in the exact same way they got built historically, because the failure of LCS has nothing to do with the arrival of Constellation. The US has needed a proper frigate replacement since it decided it was going to decommission the Perrys. The littoral combat ships were for work in the littorals. The Constellations are the General Purpose Guided Missile Frigate Replacement, aka the Perry Replacement. LCS was never the Perry Replacement. I think I've got that right.
Yep.
Jesus, I'm 2 for 2. I'm fairly certain
Lovely.
I'm fairly certain. Oh yeah, we did that one. That one's been answered before. Paul Amos, who do you think was the most influential admiral of the Royal Navy and U.S. Navy in the 20th century, and why? Now, this, as I've said to people a lot, I would, people aren't really my thing. I'm not a personnel man. I like my ships. I like my industrial build theory. I'm not so good when it comes to the life and times of admirals and officers. So I'm going to be a little bit weak here. But in terms of influential admirals of the 20th century, I feel like it's gonna have to be a tie between Fisher and Tirpitz, because both of those men combined together to bring about the zeitgeist that led to the ever-escalating Anglo-German naval arms race.
Says Admiral of Royal Navy or US Navy in 20th century, and why?
Well-
Tirpitz German Navy, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, in that case, then it's Fisher, because that man, not quite single-handedly, but he turned the Royal Navy from a force that, while capable in metal in paper, was not capable in metal in practice, and cut away a lot of the fat that was hanging off it in terms of useless ships, and also put the force through a series of training exercises that turned it from a peacetime force into a force that could, at the drop of a hat, go off and shoot somebody.
Wait, the force was already going through those exercises before Fisher even got involved. He was just one of many officers who were pushing that. Two, those ships that he got rid of were mostly the present ships around the world, which then produced a massive strain on the fleet going on, because frankly, not all of them needed to be got rid of, and he didn't replace them. Three, Fisher caused a huge amount of issues with his production because he was overly conservative in terms of his construction, which meant that the Royal Navy didn't actually take the leaps of technology which would have actually helped guarantee it further on, especially when it came to infrastructure investment. 4. Do you want me to carry on? Because I can go to the whole 10.
That's fine. Like I say, not my strong suit.
No. Fisher gets a lot of good press, and he was very good in many, many ways, but he is more very good as the lightning conductor of other people's lightning than he is necessarily sometimes on his own, which is what you see at certain points when later on. In terms of influential admiral of the Royal Navy and US Navy in 20th century, I'd go for US Navy. I would go for actually Admiral King, because he builds a lot of lines of what the US Navy becomes in the interwar period and in the post-war period especially, and sets a lot of standards. In terms of the Royal Navy, 20th century, I would go for probably you're dealing with Beatty, sadly enough, because he's the one who sets the scales for the interwar period. He really does, because he's First Sea Lord for so long. And he's such a dominant power in terms of Washington Treaty and setting up a lot of the pre-stuff before London treaties, etc. Beatty. As much as I hate to say it, it's Beatty.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I'm back now.
Fair enough.
Yay! Hey, James.
Well, there we are.
Do you want the who do you think were the most influential of the Royal Navy and US Navy in the 20th century? Why?
Waste time. I don't know. I mean, it's a toss. I'd say Fisher to begin with. Then probably just agree with you on the second one of BT.
Right. YouTube Minecraft Watcher. What if the panel was sent to Alderaan in 24 BBY? How much trouble would the panel cause? Well, the problem is we have no influence in the Star Wars galaxy. And
Speak for yourself. I have a lot of influence in the Star Wars galaxy.
with the Alderaanian royal family?
Sailor. I can make influence no matter where I go. Sorry.
Oh, for the love of God. I don't think we can cause too much trouble. I suppose we can say, maybe you should have a colony of somewhere Alderaan, because, in 24 years, the Empire's going to rock up with a giant ball and shoot the funny ray at the planet.
Okay. I can't speak for anyone else here, but I'm running for the hills.
Off planet, I assume you mean. We don't want to be there when the funny ball...
Yes.
We don't want to be there when the funny ball shows up and shoots the ray.
Well, it's not even that. It's either you've got to get out there before the Empire, and you've also got... I don't want to live under the Empire, and but 25 years, that would also be under the latter half of Clone Wars, wouldn't it?
I've got 5 years to grab a Venator class and take off for my own wanderings to prepare for the rebellion.
Yeah, he's going to go and carve out a faith for himself. Well,
Yeah.
in that case, then I've got 5 years.
Come here, Hutts! Your territory's mine.
I don't think you can. I don't think you can topple the Hutt cartels. They have more ships than you do.
I will start off by being their chief admiral. Then I will go for the kill.
It's the Hutts. I give it. The Hutt cartels. I wouldn't want to go near that with a 10-foot pole. I'm gonna.
You have no idea how nasty I'm prepared to be.
Well, if you're gonna go and nick off with the Venator, yes, Steve, the farce will be with me. Yeah, everyone else has the Force. Fleet has the farce. I'm gonna go and nick off with, in the spirit of the farce, as many Munificents and B1 battle droids to crew them as I can lay hands on. The Munificent swarm, and I go on.
Of course, Fleet would like the.
The Munificent is a glorious, beautiful child of space construction, and I will not have it slandered.
Yeah, but I'm using my Venator as basically a space base
Well, yeah.
to run my fighters from.
Yeah, look, once I have the Munificents, the plan is to then go and bully... Well, we use the Munificents to get some Requisants with the big ion cannons. Then we use the Requisants and the Munificents to isolate a single Lucre Hulk and nick off with that as the flagship. And then I take this fleet and I go and carve out a fiefdom for myself in the unknown regions. And wait.
Fleet, you do realise that the Munificent is basically just a communications freighter. They've just stuck some guns on it, right?
Yeah, but it's cheap. But it's cheap. It has lots of turbo lasers, and it can carry fighters on its externals. And I can have like 5 of them without and just a basic droid crew to run them. And 5 Munificents against anything that isn't a military force. That's a force that goes, hi, yeah, you're dead now. The Munificence is just all of the turbo lasers all of the time and nothing else.
Unless it's an organized pirate force, then you're boned.
Not really, unless they're one of the really, really well organized ones with something like a war booty Providence, or Munificence of their own, or a booty Acclamator. But even then, they're probably
War booty
have
provinces, war booty.
That's what I said. Unless they're one of those. But then, of course, I will be trying.
War booty Lucre Hulks.
Again, the whole point. Again,
war booty Venators, Quintons.
As I said, the Munificents are only supposed to be the start because they're easy to get hold of and easy to.
Out of curiosity, are you just going for a CIS fleet because you like to take charge and have no one ask any questions?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Whereas
like
I'm going to go and get myself some clones and get my own cloning program so I can provide my own crew for my own Venators of clones, as highly qualified as they can be, and quietly build it up.
Hashtag I am a B1 Battle Droid fan. I like the funny voices.
Hashtag Fleet's got as much common sense as a tactical droid.
Exactly. Why
To
do
be
you
fair-
think I'm fit to lead them? I have the same level of competence.
Are you? I didn't think you did.
No, that's
No?
the no, that's the no, it's the joke. That I'm
Tactical
meaning.
droids were actually pretty competent. They were just dumb.
Yeah, they were too rigid in their thinking.
Actually, no,
And-
that describes Fleet perfectly.
Yes.
Bollocks.
Mm-hmm.
Wartime magnificence with all of the twin turbo lasers. And what you can't see there from that image is the turbo lasers on the underside of the forward wings.
Wait,
Mm.
would you
Why do you
like a
need guns on the?
subjugator?
I'd also probably use my Venator to go and save Sabine Kryze.
Oh yeah, I should track down what's his face, that super tactical droid, and have him work for me.
No, I'm just taking over Mandalore, but we'll leave that to one side.
And Obi and Satine can, have that kid in the end.
You know,
Spoilers.
I'll quite happily be sitting in the outer rim on some no-name planet, having got medical attention for all my issues, just laughing as you all crash and burn.
I mean, honestly, Foxo, I'm gonna come and find you.
No, stay away.
It'll be quite easy to find her. Just
I
look
need-
where Dragon ship keeps going back to.
Yeah,
That's easy.
Yeah, because I need.
Because you know Dragon will be going full up on this.
Well, no, the problem is Dragon will be trying to bring her back to the Imperial core because Dragon's an Imperial. Don't forget.
Yeah. But you see, and that'll be a good thing for when he's serving me as Emperor when I'm Emperor Clark.
Exactly why I'm going to carve out my own power base in the unknown regions where none of you can find me. I don't know. Maybe I'll go and work with the Chiss.
Oh, so you're gonna get eaten by space whales? Interesting.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a reason the unsettled regions are the unsettled regions.
I'm
Right.
going to bring back a Mandalore Empire to take over the Empire.
Hey. Ruinon asks, when will my scaffolding be complete and ready for use? Will I pull wire before I get my UK cert crossover signed off? That is a interesting question.
Leslie Mitchell, I have a clone army. Yep, you see, this is the point. Have a clone army, Leslie. This is what I'm going for.
No, I'm sorry.
Have my own Venators, have multiple Venators, be able to produce my own clones, have my own fighters.
Are we literally going to be? Are we
yeah.
literally going to? Once the Empire is killed, are we literally going to refight the Clone Wars with Fleet's CIS copy versus Clark's Republic copy?
No, because the only reason the CIS survived so long is because Palpatine was running double duties.
I mean, the CIS was,
And no
was
offense, but
winning the war for the most part without interference. It's
because
interference that keeps the
because
Republic alive.
Republic was actively trying to not function.
Yeah,
And in nicest way, Fleet's sense of logistics versus my sense of logistics.
Mm-hmm.
Who wins this war?
I mean, my plan is to have a relatively... Well, I'm not trying to win, I'm just trying to force a settlement where we demarcate where the borders are going to be. That's my goal here. I don't want to destroy you. I don't want to be the sole galactic power.
I'm fully happy for that to be the case, and I am fully happy. I will happily let you have your area.
Yeah, it's like... Because here's the thing...
I will let you have your area.
Yeah.
That'll be fine.
And besides, a multipolar galaxy is far better for trade and development, generally. It'll mean there won't be the stagnation of the Republic era. If we have a multipolar galaxy.
Useful.
Like,
that is useful.
Just get the constant wars of the old Republic era.
no, I suppose
No.
it's going to come down to myself and Dr. Clark's successors if we don't find a way to make ourselves immortal.
That's not too much of a bad scenario. I'm sure I can sort it out.
Same for
But
me
also,
as well.
there's many options longer term. We can have peace while Fleet's still alive, and then if anything happens to Fleet, well, I won't want to leave his section untended, will I? And by then, I might have enough resources to just come in and take it straight over without too much effort.
Mm.
Gents, I think we're missing a really good ship that we could all have.
Okay.
The Harrower class dreadnought.
Where are you?
Oh, they are cute.
Where are you going to find one in 24 BBY?
It's quite a few of them in the service of pirates.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that'll be interesting. Oh, good lord.
I mean, I wouldn't mind a Harrower. They just look badass. They're basically a flying carrier, and they're armed to the teeth.
Ruinon says, do you think Clark will let you have your area when he has a shot at Galactic Domination? While I'm alive, and provided I can make myself immortal, we'll have the peace.
Yes, because I'll be nice to my
And
friend
also,
while he's alive.
and also because politely we both know that even though, well, we'll have no way of knowing which version of canon we're in. Are we in canon or Legends? And if we're in Legends, we've got the Funny Boys coming at some point, and we really can't afford to fight each other if the Funny Boys are coming.
I will have made sure that you're in the front line where they're going to hit.
Well, I am in the front line where they're going to hit, but I'm going to build lots and lots of planet killers and point them outwards. And everyone's going to ask, why are you pointing these planet killers outwards? And I'm saying, well, you see, I know some people who are coming, and I'm going to need all of these planet killers. And why is your fleet why are all the capital ships of your fleet exclusively subjugated derivatives with lots and lots of guns? Why have you relegated the Munificence and Recusants and Providences to light carrier, frigate, and escort, respectively? Because anything smaller than that is not a ship of the line anymore. Because of what's coming.
So I'm building my new super improved Super Venators.
Which will basically
Yellow.
which is...
Vectors.
No,
Keep it inventors, so Star Destroyers.
he's
Basically, let me put it this way: a Star Destroyer as if built by me. So, they would take on the Venator style air group and have that, but they would have a lot more firepower and shielding.
You're literally
and they would not have their bridge up their frigating top, sitting there like proud Mary.
You're basically just talking about a Sekitor with extra steps there, Dr. Clark.
Yeah, but it's going to be better. Because I'm going to be in charge of it.
You're basically talking about a Sekitor with no exposed bridge, just a wedgier wedge. The wedgiest wedge to ever wedge. That's what I'm hearing here.
Gotta get a wedge on board the wedge.
This has been a fun question. But yeah, so...
But the question is, will you just have it like a big, massive beam, i.e. yes, or are you going to slimline her to make her a bit more aesthetically pleasing on the eye?
Well, in the nicest way, I'll probably take some of the ideas that I've seen around it and mix them together and see what I like. Because there is the whole point of, do I divide it up in sort of two wedges and have the hangers in between, like the design you were pointing out a second ago? Or do I want to have the hangers top and bottom? Do I want to have the hangers in the side and have all the guns down the center line, or both above and below, so that it has a lot of firepower that can fire all round and stacked up? How do I want to run? What's going to best suit how I want to fight?
Yeah.
Roger.
Hey, that's my line. I'm the one with the battle droids. If anything else, haul hail the almighty tube, Ruinon says. Did we... I think we answered Ruinon's question about the scaffolding being completely ready for use, and will he pull the wire before his UK cert gets cross-signed off? I think.
Do you think... I think this question is, do you think the PT-91 tank is the best T-72 version out there? Do you think the Malaysian PT-91M is the best MBT in Southeast Asia?
Well, the PT-91 kind of... If we're talking purely Southeast Asia, as in not including Australia and New Zealand, then the PT-91 kind of wins by being the only man left standing.
Singapore have 170 Leopard 2 SGs.
Didn't realise Singapore had MBT.
Yeah.
And does
Yes,
Australia?
if I'm correct, those are based off the early Leopard 2s.
Yeah, and I don't.
Yes, but they're still, I think, better than the 91.
Depends which PT91 so they got PT91M. When was the M version created? So let's have a look. Variants. So M. If they've got, is it M1 or so M? Export version. That's one from Malaysia. Okay.
Also, they have, they've kind of also got 47 or 45 of those of the Singapore tanks are 2A7 standard.
Yeah, so the 2A7s are probably a bit better than the 91Ms.
And yes,
They're much better. They are
2SG,
much better.
And the 2SGs were based off an improved A4 standard, and that's 158 and 45 of the tank specifically. They've also got 20 BPVZ-free Berthels, some Kodiaks, and Leguns as well as they're supporting it. So
yeah,
I'd say in the nicest way.
Excuse me.
I would say, well, Singapore keeps trying to say they have. There's a whole debate whether Singapore has received any A7s or not. The German defense company that supplies them says they sold them A7s. The Singaporean government is saying they have not received A7s. So, which one do you believe on that front is up to you. But we do know they have received 224 tanks so far, overall. So yeah, I would say the Singaporeans in Southeast Asia.
Mm-hmm.
And as for it, the topic of the question being the best T-72,
T90 exists.
I'd go probably if you don't count T90.
Yeah.
Because T90 is heavily related to T-72, but there's a good argument it's not the same tank.
Yeah. Knight 6831 asks, if the Royal Navy got 8 Type 82 Bristol class, then 8 Type 42 Sheffields built before the 1982 Falklands War, how many of the Type 82s would miss the Falklands War? None of them.
They've got 8 of each, right?
Yeah, and you say they're built before 1982.
Well, you've probably got 4 of each get down there in the first row because they'll be available. There'll be some in maintenance, some in refit, some in those sort of things, and so probably 8 of them will be down there at any one point. Probably about, including the illustrious group, about 12 of those of the Ghost Combined Forces will get there, and there'll probably be about 4 which will miss it entirely.
Yeah.
Because of refit, but yeah, that's basically divide by 4.
It'd be an interesting subject to cover, though, because if you think about it, the Bristol's a larger ship than a Sheffield, which means she has a larger RCS. So the question then would be, would you forward deploy a 82 to the position of a 42, and then forward deploy the 42 further in? As a layered defense system, granted they're both Sea Dart carrying ships, or do you keep the 82s back with the fleet and then forward deploy all your 42s?
What were the other ships? 82s, and what were the other ones?
So you got the ships that were there were.
No, the ships that they were talking about deploying. It was 82s, and what was the other batch they were saying? 8 82s. They said 8 Bristols fleet. What was the other group?
8 Sheffields. So 42s.
Yeah, 42s. So they've got 8 of each, and so they're going to have 4 of each down there. The Sheffields are going to be a task group ship, so it's going to be Picket assets are going to be your 82s, aren't they?
Yeah, they can also technically be used as a flagship role because they're that big.
Yeah. Yes, which would be interesting because it might mean the argument of keep Vice Admiral Derek Raffel back in the UK doesn't work. In which case, there's a task force commander deployed down south. So if there's a task force commander down there, then one of the 82s is probably doing that role with him aboard that. And it's going to be, how do I put this politely? It's going to be interesting to see how it works through and works out. But I would say probably you would have some of them doing the picket duties, but also would they necessarily want to put an 82, which is such a useful ship, in such an exposed picket duty as Sheffield was put in? But also, it's going to sound strange, but it's going to be communications issues where we've got a lot of people trying to SATCOM back to the UK because that's where the task force command was. So a lot of information had to be sent back there constantly. If you have the task force command running functionally from an 82 in the Falklands, then the only ship which is going to be sending those details and reports back to the UK would be the task force ship, because at the time they'd be running them through it, wouldn't they? So instead of Sheffield having the SATCOM on and that affecting their radar area, they wouldn't have the SATCOM on necessarily.
I think
because it's gonna change all your command scenarios completely.
Yeah, I also think that because of the size of the 82s, the amount of people that have to be put on an 82 to keep her going.
Yeah,
it's probably wise to keep those ships closer to the task group and then push out the 42s. Because as much as I don't want to say it, if you got 4 82s down there and 4 42s, the 42s, yes, they're a newer ship. They're a bit cheaper than an 82. They have less people than an 82. They're kind of a bit more expendable at that point.
They also have, let's be honest, less. If you consider the 82, the radars and systems it has, the 82 is far more able to defend your task force internally. If you've got that behind the 42s, then things getting past the 42s are not going to have a nice time.
That being said, the 82 is still an underarmed ship.
Yes.
So,
especially in the version they probably have bought it, because it wouldn't come out in the same layout as Bristol.
No.
The interesting thing is the 82 was very seriously considered for getting a Seawolf system as well. And if they're still around in 1982, some of them could well have had a Seawolf up, like the various Leanders did. So they might have Seawolf and Sea Dart on board, which would be incredibly interesting.
Yeah, it would be a lot better. It would actually push out the availability of her weapons. Well, no, sorry. It would make her a bit more of a useful ship, whereas in comparison,
yes.
42s were very much limited to what they could do because of the twin armor down forward. Whereas granted, the Bristol has it down aft.
And forward, as both. But it would also have... It did. It had a twin arm forward, didn't it, as well?
No. It was only down aft. You're thinking the Akara, which was after the 4.5 and the Breakwater and before the 909.
Oh, yeah. But I seem to remember the plan was for the Seawolf was they were going to have them have 2 sextuple launchers mounted either side.
What, up forward or amidships or down aft?
Well, I'm not sure where the space is, but I presume it's going to replace the side gun mounts, which were originally going to be fitted in.
Yeah, the gun mounts came in after the Falklands War. At the time, there was ships both along the sides there.
She only had 220 by the time of Falklands.
Yeah, I think that originally it was going to be, they were looking at, if they stayed in longer, they were going to get the Seawolves. And I think potentially they go forward I can only see the position next to the radar dome forward.
Because
That looks like the only space you could put them either side. You could fit them in there.
There was a large hatch starboard side of the quote-unquote breakwater, which is a double door, which I'm pretty sure is the magazine handling lift for the Akaras, because the Akara was in a big well in between that section. So it's the only place I can imagine you'd probably put it, but you'd have to then increase the size, or you'd have to put something down that section to have them raised so they don't basically shoot into the back of the breakwater.
Yeah.
It's the only way I can think of it working.
Yeah. But I think that's the sort of space they could do it, and then that'd be an interesting scenario. It's such a heavily armed vessel. That would be comparatively a heavily armed vessel.
You know what? I'm just going to go and make image.
Oh boy.
Okay.
Screw stability homework. Let's go make upgraded for 82.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Beginning officer, what's your opinion on the F-101 Voodoo? Do you think it's not a good aircraft and its services interceptor got eclipsed by the F-4? The 101 was a fairly capable aircraft when it was introduced. And you can't have the F4 without the 101. But that alone makes the 101 fairly capable. And then, of course, even when the US had the F4 to replace it, for pretty much all roles, the 101 continued to give valuable service as a interceptor for the Canadians.
The 101 is an important step on the evolution to the F4 Phantom.
Yeah.
Put it simply. And both were made in the designed in the 1950s and 60s, where jet tech was going insane, shall we say.
Yes.
Yeah, quickly comment.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no.
Yeah.
F-101 was never developed as an interceptor?
It was a fighter bomber, wasn't it?
No, it was a long-range escort aircraft for B-47s. It was supposed to walk bombers into Soviet Russia with nuclear bombs.
Wow.
It was only pressed into interceptor by the Canadians, when the entire the original F4 deal fell apart, and just sort of they've continued using the 101s because that's the aircraft they bought that fit NORAD defense requirement.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, not an interceptor.
There you are then. 1961, if the Royal Navy got 8 Type 82 Bristols, what is the likely schedule for their retirement? That's hard to say, actually.
They would still be in service today.
No, they would have been retired probably first. So honestly, we've had a program to replace them at the same time as we are. We'd probably replace them first, and they'd probably been the first batch of whatever new destroyers we built before the next batch would replace Type 42s. So it'd be a 2-batch approach to the Type 45 program.
Although it might.
Interesting enough, that would push us earlier, which would possibly mean that we would be we would actually have to go for. We would be less likely to join the Horizon Frigate program, because, or rather, the Horizon Frigate program might be to replace the Type 42s because we have to go for something else. But then we'll just go for for the same thing twice over.
Yeah.
because it saves us money. And so we wouldn't join necessarily the Horizon frigate project. We probably still have Samson radar, considering its development timeline. We'd probably end up having to go for a bigger destroyer overall and a more general purpose asset.
Mm-hmm.
So you're probably looking for something which has Mark 41 VLS from the beginning. So probably you're talking about something which has 48 cells for surface-to-air missiles forward with gun forward, and then has a 48 Mark 41 VLS cell system somewhere before the hangar, back aft.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 64s. Maybe 64s.
Broadsword.
Mm.
In this timeline, do you reckon the 43s would come into service?
It's unlikely. Because if you've built the 42, well, unless you literally do that, we've built the 82s, we built the 42s. Now instead of you building batch-free 42s, we build the 43s, sort of thing.
Pretty cool. Could always make the 43s the replacement to the 82s.
Well, they're not really the replacements of it. It'll be more likely it'll be an 83 if that makes sense. Because if it's got to be a general purpose asset, because the 43s were still air defense.
Yeah, fair point.
It's like the ships which we built now would probably not be the 45s, they'd probably be more likely the 85. Because they'd be general purpose. Not just air defense destroyers.
YouTube Minecraft Watcher asks, what if on July 1st, 1941, all KV-1 and KV-2 tanks in the Soviet army become IS-7 tanks, and the factory for the KVs changed to produce the IS-7s? The Russians fundamentally cannot move those tanks, except under their own power. And at that point, they're expensive hunks of metal waiting to fall into German hands as the routes grip the Russian army.
It's worse than that, Flame.
Well, I was only going to go with the opening salvo because I knew full well someone would really go into the details, and I wanted it to be someone other than me. So please, Foxo, fire away.
First things first. The IS-7 has this ingenious solution to weirdly shaped fuel tanks called "What if we made the fuel tanks out of fabric?" Secondly, aluminium engine blocks in the 1930s and 40s Soviet Union. Thirdly, it's too heavy for suspension. Fourthly, it required very high quality steel and welding, so it didn't catch fire because of the fabric fuel tanks. What was the actual question?
Every single KV-1 and KV-2 is replaced by an IS-7 in July of 41. And all the factories that build KV-1s and KV-2s also now are tooled for IS-7 only. There goes,
oh boy, how fun!
There goes Russia's heavy tank designs.
No.
As in, no, they don't go?
It would be pretty easy to retool that for creation of the lower IS numbers.
Yeah, but it is going to take time.
Because there was a lot of parts commonality. Actually, the big thing is that the IS-7s are part of the reasons why you see stuff like the T-10 requires a set of very high quality welders and proper professional welders. So, I mean, You get better manufacturing quality, I guess. You actually have proper tooling in the factories, because a lot of KVs were built with questionable tooling.
But I'd just
Actually,
say
good
the
quality.
good tank.
I mean,
Actually, even worse, it's high quality armor plate.
yeah.
That actually helps the Soviets.
Yeah, and I mean, there is also the thing isn't really what impact it has on the Russians. It just kind of delays the IS production by a bit, but doesn't really change that. It's what do the Germans make of these tanks when they capture them?
The mouse might actually exist.
Tiger's going to look radically different. Because now Tiger's benchmark isn't KV1. Tiger's benchmark is IS-7. Whereas Panthers, as we know, is T-34.
It's not going to affect Tiger 1. Because this is in
Inside
1941,
right?
correct?
Oh, it's
Tiger
gonna
1's
affect the
already
Panther.
locked in.
Yeah, so... Yeah,
Panther, not really.
No, Panthers the answer to T-34 and the replacement for Panzer IV. That's not really going to be replaced.
It's going to really affect the Panzer. It's going to really affect Tiger 2.
Yeah, and what form that takes.
And
in fact, you might not even see Tiger 2 adopted. You might see Löwe.
You won't see Löwe. Because good luck getting the high quality aluminium alloys needed to make that thing's gearbox.
Could you see a version of Löwe with a different gearbox?
No, that tank was built around that gearbox.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be something like Löwe in terms of specs with a big 128.
No. You see 105 probably. You see Tiger 2 with a different turret for a 105. Because the 128, a part of the issue with Löwe is that the recoil stroke for the 128 is too long for the turret, which is why I hate Wargaming's interpretation of it. And it's why they needed to put it on the Jag Tiger. But the naval 4-inch is probably what you see.
Honestly, the big impact is going to be the Germans reacting to the Russians, and everyone else reacting to the Germans. And it could actually delay operations whilst everyone's waiting for their new big tanks to get into service.
No, it's probably going to light a fire under the Germans' ass in the east. Because they're losing it to... They know the Soviets are losing these tanks too. Just Soviet incompetence. So that, and the Germans aren't going to try and let the Soviet become competent. And they're going to try and use the window while they're still relevant.
Yeah.
Actually, the biggest issue I could see for the Allies fighting Germany is that you've just given them a lot of high quality steel and a lot of American made high quality aluminium.
Yeah.
And we're not talking good aluminium, we're talking some of the best the Allies can produce in 1945 aluminium. And you've just given them a good 200-300 tons of the stuff, minimum. Which, given how these are alloys that have had uses in stuff like jet engines, which you might be able to fix the Jumo engines with them, and at that point, you might actually see jet v-jet combat in World War II. It's a long shot, but... Anyway,
Right, I have finished the 82 of the Seawolf.
Oh my god. Oh my lord. Good job, Shipyard.
It's coming, James. But yeah, that's
I like it.
as good as I can
You've taken-
visualize it in my head.
You've got rid of the Ikora.
Yeah. Oh yes. I'm debating getting rid of the
They've seen
Limbo, but Limbo gets rid of in about 2 years' time anyway.
Mhm.
The only
You got
issue
the
I found
speed.
was trying to get keep the C dart down half, but the two 909s, you can't superfire the 909 over 910, but you can superfire 910 over 909 because of line of sight issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could make it better. I could put them on sponsons either side and then make the breakwater go up to the level with where that sea dart is. But I'll see sea wolf. It's really sodding missiles. But I think she just look a bit weird at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I quite like it.
It's still a pretty scary ship to have wandering around.
Yep. Now, I reckon you could do that better. I reckon you could probably put a sea dart down forward.
I reckon you could as well.
Mm.
And if you could have a sea dart, if you could get it so you had a sea dart and Seawolf fore and aft, so you had both of them fore and aft. Ooh.
I mean, to be fair, you could probably put a Seawolf over superfiring over the sea dart down aft, but that's where the med bay is before she got refitted. But the only issue then would be if you wanted a sea dart down forward. Have you ever been on? You've been on Bristol before, haven't you?
Yeah.
You know how big the sea dart mag was down aft.
Yes.
The issue would be is I don't think you could get one down forward.
Not the same size.
No.
But you could put something there, and considering the mag you have on the sea, considering how many you could take forward, you could put a mag. Especially if you get deleting the Ikora, you've got the Ikora space.
See, it'd be really good if someone had the deck plans for Bristol, so we could properly plan this one out.
I have my dad's file somewhere. I think.
I know I have the deck layout for. Oh well, I think
it's on a floppy disk though, so I'd have to go hunting for it. I'm not sure if it still works.
I think I've got 2 deck somewhere.
Because my dad had a load of cleared deck files on a floppy disk that he could of ships he built that he could use for presentations and things.
Oh.
So stuff which I could use as well, and they're really cool. But they're on a floppy disk somewhere, and so I put them in something safe for the move.
Mm-hmm.
And I have backed them up onto other things, but it's onto a portable hard drive, which is guess where, with the floppies, because they're all secure in a nice box, which is going to look after them. But also made sense, so I know. Hang on, that hard drive, that's with a floppy. So that's the floppies all turned into. And I kid you not, his prize collection of about 120 floppy disks fills up like a 100th of the space on the portable hard drive. These, I'm sure, which were absolutely humongously detailed plans for their period that he got cleared and all sorts of things, and then you sit there and go. Yeah, they all take up on this 2 terabyte hard drive. Take up ooh.
Oh no! I've just noticed
a fraction of the space.
I've just noticed the next question. I'm just sat here going, "Oh, why?" But we don't skip questions here on Rambling, so here I go. Bone Meal Boy asks, How long could the various navies hold out in the Skibbity Toilet universe? Kill me now.
Right then, while you deal with that, I am going to go find some food. Love you all. And as I tagged out, James can't tag out.
Blake, can we, break this down for the people who have, no idea what the bloody hell we're talking about?
Do
Are you
we
me?
have to?
Okay.
Look.
So first things first, I would like permission to declare an excommunicatus, John Wick style, on the person who asked this question.
Look, I have no problem with Skibbity Toilet itself. It's classic Gmod funny nonsense.
Rain Raw.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, it's classic Gmod funny nonsense, and I grew up on classic Gmod funny nonsense. But we have no specifications, we have no details, we have no information. It's turned into this movie-style thing, which, honestly, it's quite well done in terms of what it's possible to do in Gmod, and it's fairly impressive. But there's no real way to analyze it beyond explosions, Michael Bay MacGuffins, and things like that. Fundamentally, we see the various belligerents, quote-unquote, display abilities and powers that are basically whatever the plot demands. So, to be blunt, there's no way to know how various navies would hold out. No, I'm not gonna ban the chat for answering the question. My frustration is more with the problem that we have no data for one of the two participants in this involved, rather than the question itself. Like, people can enjoy it if they like. Like, I don't understand the hate. Like, guys, it's just the same shit. It's the modern version of the same shit we grew up with. Like,
yes.
That's all it is. Like, it's their Gmod idiot box. That's what it is. There's nothing wrong with it. Typical gunnery officer asks, thoughts on the USN having multiple different types of carrier aircraft in the 70s and 80s? Do you think it's a logistical nightmare to maintain and fly these different aircraft, unlike the RN, who are more logical since they only have the 3 different types on their carriers? Phantom, Buccaneer, and Gannet, while the US had 4 to 6. No, this question fundamentally misunderstands the situation. First of all, the USN in the 70s and 80s had high double-digit carrier numbers. It still has all the midways. It still has all the Forestals. It has all the Kitty Hawks. The Nimitzes are coming in. Enterprise exists. With the size of air fleet spread between those carriers, operating 4 to 6 different aircraft is not logistically straining at all, given the size of orders you're actually bringing in to fill out your air wings. And the Royal Navy, while some of the more bespoke types like Vigilant might not be something the RN would want, the RN wouldn't say no to some of the extras that the USN has, if they had the option to have them, and had the fleet size where they could accommodate them without breaking the budget. This is the thing. The USN, at this point, has aircraft for every role because it can afford to, because of the size of the air fleet it's operating, and the number of carriers it has. Economies of scale start to kick in. The Royal Navy, the Marine Nationale, they don't have that same luxury. They're operating 2 to 4 Katabar carriers. They need the basics. They need the strike platform, the fleet air defense platform, and the anti-submarine platform. And if they're feeling particularly lucky on that particular day, the airborne early warning and control platform. That's what you get. You get the 4 basics. You get the 4 basics. Because it's what you need.
The USN in the 70s.
Moe,
Moe, we can't hear you.
your mic's really fuzzy. We can't hear you.
Sorry, I'm trying to sleep, but obviously I can't, so I'm just listening in, and I'm using my phone's mic, and obviously
There we
it's
go,
clearly
that's-
not very good.
That's clearer. That's a little bit clearer.
I was just saying, I don't understand. The USN in the 70s operated the F-14 as fleet air defense, the A-6 as a primary naval strike, and A-7 as a lightweight strike. What is there? Sure, Midway still operates at 4 because they can't operate at 14s, but I don't see any issue with this. They don't operate that many different aircraft types to begin with, and in the 80s, when the F-18 rolls in, it overtakes the A-6 and A-7 at the same time. They
Yeah,
aren't really operating that many types of aircraft.
yeah.
They're just rolling in new things, and it might seem like they have 4 to 6 different type of aircrafts, but 2 of them are probably 2 or 3 of them are like the old types where they're just operating, because they still have them.
Yeah. Yeah, that basically hits the nail on the head. Knight6831 asks, how plausible is the idea of the Thai Navy buying a Tiger-class light cruiser from the British? It is an ideal World of Warships announced as Narai, a Tier 8 Pan-Asian cruiser. It's not plausible in the slightest. The Thai Navy don't have the money, and the British probably won't want to sell. The Thais...
If they did have the money, then the British might sell, because at the time, thanks to the certain events which had happened at the end of World War II, the British were chronically short of foreign currency, and so did all sorts of very stupid decisions because of that.
Yes.
But, yes, the Thais would have to have the money first.
Yeah, but also if the Thais
What?
have the money, if the Thais, but also if the Thais have the money, they wouldn't buy a Tiger anyway. They'd buy something else
Why not?
because the Tiger's not what they need. They don't need a.
As a status flagship for just a single one?
No, they already have a status flagship. The last of their coast defense ships. It looks big and imposing. It's impressive to be the status flagship, and it's cheaper to run in that role.
It's
they-
not anymore, though.
I said it looks big and impressive rather than it is big and impressive.
It doesn't at this point.
To the common person, it does. 2 twin 8-inch gun turrets make an awful lot of impression on people, even if the ship itself is somewhat small.
Not really.
The Thai Navy
They
needs.
also have issues.
The Thai Navy basically needs new destroyers. It needs a quartet of, like, if it can afford to buy something like Tiger, if we're sticking with Britain, buy yourself a quartet of destroyers. Buy yourself a
Darings?
quartet of large destroyers.
Darings.
Yeah, buy yourself a quartet of Darings. That will put you well ahead of a lot of your independent rivals in the region at that point, in terms of all-round naval warfare, because those ships will be able to deal with anti-submarine threats, air threats, for the most part, and anti-surface actions. They don't.
But when the Russians and the Americans turn up, you have nothing new to look at them and go, we are just as capable as you are.
To be fair, the Thai Navy didn't anyway.
But that's the purpose of buying such an asset.
Tiger's just not. It's just not what they need.
No, Fleet, you are again, and I mean this in the nicest way. You are putting the whole thing of what do you need to fight a war versus what do you need to fight a peace? What do you need for President's Mission? And for President's Mission, sometimes the status of having a cruiser, it doesn't necessarily matter what that cruiser is, but having a cruiser and making sure it's a modernish looking one is what you need in terms of your presence. There's a reason why the modern Thai Navy runs a little carrier, which is also their royal yacht. So I would say I'd say it's actually quite possible they end up with a cruiser, because if they wanted a royal yacht in that period, they probably would go for a Tiger, because let's be honest, it's got the most space to be a royal yacht while also looking like a mean cruiser.
You probably want to not buy Tiger because listen, it's because of those auto-loading 6-inch guns. They're gonna be more prone to failure, given the more lax maintenance
they
of the Thai
sound
Navy.
they sound very modern, capable, and also
But for the
fleet
efficient
in the
cost,
nicest way.
but for the efficient cost, you could get
Right,
one
and why
of
are you presuming the Thai Navy are lax in maintenance?
because their post-war record for some of their ships, they did go through a period, the period under discussion, the sort of 40s.
They went through a
60s.
period of funding problems, but in nicest way, and most navies, when they go through periods of funding issues, have problems. It depends on how much infrastructure they have to support with. Plus, they are transitioning from who they traditionally look to for supplies and support at that time, and were considering different options, and that caused a lot of problems. It did. But the Thai Navy are not inherently bad at maintenance.
Yes, they're not, but it's one thing to maintain ships similar to what you operate. Say, like, for example, if they were to buy one of the towns post-war, I can perfectly believe that could be kept around as a status symbol and maintained with very little, if any, flaws or maintenance defects. But Tiger's automatic 6 and 3-inch guns are just complexity I don't think they're ready for. As a navy, as an institution. Don't think they've got the electromechanical base in their navy yet for it.
So you think they would buy the ships and not send people abroad to do the necessary training to build that into their navy?
No, I feel like they would do so when they were
Or
looking to
do you
acquire.
feel they can't
No,
understand these things?
no, I feel like at this point, buying Tiger at the point we're discussing buying her isn't what they'd go for if they want a prestige asset. They'd go for, if they're going for Britain, they'd go for a town. And they would probably would then, yeah, like I say, they don't need to send their guys overseas.
I could see them. I could see them going for the ultra modern the Tiger, literally because of the capability, because of it having the automatic systems, because that looks like it's the ultra modern system.
They have.
It's that status.
They have nothing to escort her.
They're not thinking about escorting her. It's not about warfighting tool. And they might also, a nice way, if they're buying this, the nicest way, they're also buying some destroyers, so they're probably getting some Darings at the same time. But that's not part of the question. But you wouldn't be buying one if you weren't buying the other as well. So they're probably buying a couple of 2 to 3 Darings and a Tiger. And in the nicest way, that's a fairly nice little force to have.
I feel like we're leaning a little bit too into the prestige ship for prestige stakes, and I agree with you most of the time, but I do feel like this is being a little bit prestige for prestige sake rather than
yes
sense.
But Fleet, I am going to point out the panic that occurred in Congress when the Soviets started building ships that they classified as cruisers, and technically the U.S. Navy did not have any cruisers on the books at the time.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Fleet, but you are a nice, logical person. Once again, you need to deal with the perception-based people who care about the image of reality, not reality.
Yeah.
Well, so ain't this currently the kingdom of Siam at this point?
It's always been the kingdom of Siam, Fox, so it's still the kingdom of Siam. Well, kingdom of Thailand, technically, but still.
Yeah.
Also, apologies for accidentally pulling a Fleet, pinging everybody and their brother earlier in stream.
Damn it. Damn it, Ruinon.
I don't know why we have that roll, but it was the wrong roll, much like the wrong lever.
I mean, to be fair, Knight, even if the carrier doesn't have planes, it's still a good it's still a good asset for the TIE Navy to have. She can provide an ASW net for any TIE squadron she's part of with her helos. Very nice ASW net as well.
Fairly sure she was designed to be able to operate Harriers.
She operated Harriers for an exceptionally short length of time.
I know.
She had them for, I think, what was it? It was she had.
There are pictures of her operating alongside the Kitty Hawk with Harriers at several points and doing various things to them.
It was only like 3 years, I think, she actually ended up. Like, it was really. How long was it? Let me see. When did she get her? It's a bit of a tangent, but let's see. Yeah, because she got her Harriers in 1997, and by 1999 she only had 1 left. And then she tried to 1 aircraft left operational. They tried to get more to break down the parts, including trying to buy ex-Royal Navy Sea Harriers. Didn't work, and then they kept the inoperative Harriers on the ship, but then they just eliminated them from the service list in 2006. She didn't even have fixed-wing aviation for a decade.
To be fair, what they did was they bought 9 former Spanish aircraft, 7 standard 2 trainer aircraft.
Oh, yeah.
And which had been refurbished by a Spanish firm before delivery.
Yep.
And then their Spanish firm that was trying to couldn't support them anymore, and they tried to go to the British to try and get the spare parts for it, British Aerospace, etc. And it was found that there had been enough changes made by the Spanish firm that the British Aerospace parts no longer fitted.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, even without her fixed-wing aviation, she's still a very capable.
She's a lovely little asset. She's a
She carries 6 Seahawk.
Yeah.
And then 2 additional Nighthawk. And she can surge to 14 helos. which actually means she can operate as a small helicopter assault ship, if the TIE Navy wanted to use her like that. 14 helo. That could land that could land you in few ships, a company or a battalion ashore, if you're willing to pack her with a company or a battalion. But yeah, with that ticking over past 1 minute past 8, that brings us to the end of this week's Fleet's Random Ramblings. So, as I'm sure some of you who saw the pings are aware, starting this Monday, we're going to have Fleet's Monday Stellaris. So, starting at 9 o'clock, we will be running that every Monday, post Ramblings. That's locked in now, so a ping will go out for that with the Hoi Hoi roll in about an hour's time. So make sure if anyone wants to be around for that, they can be around for that.
Would we consider this?
No, not reconsidering it. I'm aware it's a Monday evening. I'm aware it's not ideal for everybody.
No, because there's the big Stell update and fix coming in a week or 2.
Well, yeah, but I can't not play Stellaris for. I've already made the announcement. It's a bit late. It's all right. We will just have to. It's a bit late. We'll just have to deal with it when it comes. We'll just have to deal with it when it comes. It's just one of those things. But yeah. Paul says it's all about the image. Yeah,
we start doing your updating now.
We can't do the update now, Ruinon. The update hasn't dropped yet. I don't understand. I feel like I'm missing a memo here. Either way,
I thought the problem was that the mods hadn't updated or something. Whatever. Carry on.
No. There's a rework of the actual game coming, I think, is what Fox was saying. Is that right?
No, there's a massive bug fix rampage coming.
Right. Well, we can't
because they remember they've broken and changed the population system.
Oh yeah, so we'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it. But that's fine. That's not a problem. It is what it is. We just have to live with it. And besides, it'll be a good way for some people to learn the early game again, since I haven't touched Stellaris in a while. So I could do with a test game to kind of uncrack my knuckles and run and declog some of the cogs in my head for the early game. So it's not so bad. We can work around it. Not a problem. Not a problem.
Enjoy. Take care.
But yes,
Have
thank
fun.
you everyone. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you Alex. Thank you Foxer. Thank you the guy that everyone likes, also known as the Dutchman. Thank you Ruinon. Thank you James. Thank you Moe. Thank you to all the audience members. And I'm just going to say this now. Please, if you could spare any change to help Fleet continue being Fleet, you can support me on Patreon through a monthly subscription, but I would much prefer if you were to drop in to the Ko-fi page and buy me a cider. It would really help me cover some of the other costs. Well, that's what I call my little donation for Ko-fi.
I know. Yeah.
But it helps cover some of the costs of what I do. So any little bits people can spare.
I really don't need to be taking out free cider obsessors around the world. Please help me. It's bad enough for the 2 Dans.
But yeah,
I need Fleet as well. 3 people who are hunting cider wherever we go. Please think of your friendly
And 2
neighbors.
of them have an exceptionally high alcohol tolerance.
Yes. But yeah,
yes,
thank you,
they
everybody.
do.
But yeah, thank you everybody for coming. Take care, and I will catch you all. If you're a Twitch viewer, I'll catch you all. YouTube, Twitch / Discord viewer, because I know some of those crossovers exist. I'll see you all tomorrow for Rule the Waves, and then on Wednesday for Railroader. And then, of course,